Good morning to our online viewers and audience members. Are you guys pumped for today? Yes. For the blizzard too? Family Research Council welcomes you to the 2016 ProLifeCon Digital Action Summit. My name is Arina Grossu, and I'm the Director of the Center for Human Dignity here at FRC. This morning, we will hear testimony from individuals, activists, policy experts, and legislators as they discuss the issues impacting the pro-life movement and share practical ways to make a difference for life on blogs, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and more. Let me introduce you to our first speaker, United States Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. After 23 years of dedicated service in the military, Senator Ernst became the first female combat veteran ever elected to U.S. Senate. A mother of 3 and a grandmother of 6, Senator Ernst is a dedicated defender of life through her work as an active co-chair of the Senate Values Action Team, and for leading the effort to defund Planned Parenthood by sponsoring a bill in the Senate this past August that would redirect taxpayer funds to community health clinics. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Senator Joni Ernst.
Well, thank you, everyone. It is great to be out on this cold January day. Of course, coming from the Midwest, this is just another day in January. But I do want to thank you very much. This is an important day for all of us. And as you are well aware, there are a lot of voices in the pro-life debate. And too often, however, those pro-abortion organizations have a proclivity to disregard the facts. And I saw a great deal of this last year when I introduced legislation that would defund Planned Parenthood to and redirect that federal funding from Planned Parenthood to other health organizations, those that didn't provide abortions, like community health centers and hospitals. And as you all probably know, the legislation came at a time when Planned Parenthood was being exposed for their role in the harvesting of the organs of unborn babies. This was depicted in gruesome footage showing Planned Parenthood employees picking apart bodies of unborn babies to harvest organs like liver, kidneys, and heart. Democrats and Republicans alike called the images of these videos disturbing. The American people were shocked and horrified by the utter lack of compassion and disregard that was shown by Planned Parenthood for these women and their babies. I offered legislation to redirect taxpayer dollars away from Planned Parenthood because as a mother and a grandmother, I believe that protecting our most vulnerable is an important measure of any society, especially here in the United States. However, many on the left attacked this legislation and lobbed one falsehood after another, both on TV, through the press, and also on the Senate floor. In an effort to set the facts straight, I utilized all of the available means to communicate my message and make our pro-life voices heard over the pro-abortion advocates. I utilized Facebook, I utilized Twitter, I utilized YouTube, and I worked to communicate a message that was based on a proactive and fact-based, beyond the traditional means of talking with the media and attending events, things like that. In addition, I wrote columns for online news publications and shared those columns and messages across various social media platforms. On every platform, it was important to separate the facts from the fiction that many pro-abortion activists were spewing. For example, in an online column, I made clear to folks that community health centers provide more comprehensive primary and preventative health care services except for abortion, regardless of the person's ability to pay. And in fact, according to the most recent data, in Iowa, community health centers vastly outnumbered Planned Parenthood centers 7-1. 7-1. Meanwhile, as we finally seem to get folks to acknowledge, Planned Parenthood, their facilities do not perform in-house mammograms. Many people talk about them providing preventative services, but very basic services like the mammograms, they don't provide at Planned Parenthood. The American taxpayer should not be asked to fund an organization like Planned Parenthood, and they deserve to know the truth behind the falsehoods and misconceptions that are being spread. So using various platforms across social media gave me a greater microphone to reach folks and separate the rhetoric from the reality. The more we can communicate across various social media platforms and focus on the unencumbered facts, the more people we can reach, and the better and stronger our message will be. So these are tools that all of us can use to really separate the fact from the fiction, the rhetoric from the reality, and ensure that the American people, especially our younger generations, understand exactly what it is we're fighting for and why we are fighting for it. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to be here this morning. Today is going to be a very important day for us. We will join together in many types of activities as we go on to march across the mall, to stand for life, to march for life. I apologize because I am going to step out now. I have a group of wonderful Iowans that have traveled out from the Midwest that I'm going to go greet, and we're going to rally together before we head down to the mall. So again, thank you. Let's continue using these social media platforms. Let's get our word out, and let's all stand together for life. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ernst, for your time. We truly appreciate all the hard work you do in the Senate for life. Next, we have Vince DiCaro. He is the Chief Outreach Officer of CareNet, an organization offering compassion, help, and hope to women and men considering abortion. It works through its network of pregnancy centers, organizations, and individuals. He oversees the development and communication of the organization. Before I invite Vince up, I'd like to show you a video.
When it comes to the issue of abortion, it has become America's Holocaust.
Since the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973, at least 1 million unborn children every year have lost their lives to abortion, and countless women and men have had to suffer from the negative consequences of abortion.
Abortion provides temporary relief, but afterwards comes the bigger package of depression and guilt and shame and sorrow and regret that you live with for many, many years.
I come from a generation where at least a third of my generation isn't here because of abortion. And for me, that's just unconscionable. And I can't live in a society where millions upon millions of my fellow American citizens are not here.
We did a lot of research, and one of the things that we discovered is that there are women in the church having abortions. Our research found that 4 out of every 10 women who has had an abortion was actively going to church at the time of her abortion.
And the reality is that when it comes to the abortion issue and the life issue, the church has not really been using that transformative power that it has around this issue. It's been an issue that's been outside of the church when the problem is inside the church, and the church has a call to the broader culture. So we're inspired around this project specifically to do that. This is a tool that will help mobilize the church.
Most pastors I know are concerned about the well-being of people in their church as well as outside of their church. Well, we need to be as equally concerned about the life in the womb. And so because it's an issue of life, and God is the author of life, that we must be in life-related issues. For us, it's a priority, and I think it should be a priority for any pastor who's concerned about comprehensive ministry.
As a Christian, our hope should be Christ's hope. And the last thing that he said was what? Go and make disciples of all nations. And certainly God has really given us an opportunity, a unique opportunity in this day and age in our culture for this life issue to be an amazing vehicle to help make disciples for Jesus Christ.
A life disciple is someone who is willing to work with women and men as they are facing a pregnancy decision.
As a life disciple, we have the honor and the privilege and the blessing of walking with people in the middle of their crisis.
When I was pregnant at 17, I went to our local OBGYN, and he asked me, is this good news or is this bad news? And I said, this is not good news. And he said, well, here's the number for an abortion clinic in New York City. And that was really the extent of the counseling that I had, or the care. You know, it was like, if this is an unplanned pregnancy, abortion is a solution. And if I had a life disciple at 17, I would have chosen life instead of abortion.
What conquers fear is love. And when you envelop this lady with love and encouragement and compassion, that I want to cry with you, I want to laugh with you, I want to embrace you, I want to love you, you've opened up the door to share the gospel. So the Bible is clear that God has authored life, he sustains life, and his goal is that we might have abundant life that Jesus Christ offers. And of course, the church is the best place to offer all of it.
I firmly believe the more educated people are about the abortion issue, the more and more people become pro-life and want to protect unborn children and women and men from the destruction of abortion. Because that's really to the core of how we solve the abortion issue in our country, is to reach the people that it's impacting the most.
Our goal with this curriculum is for people who will be trained as life disciples and who have an opportunity to meet with people who are facing a pregnancy decision. I mean, people who have before them life or death. Our hope and our prayer is that you will help them choose life.
Let's welcome Vince DiCaro to the stage to tell us more about the work he does.
So that you actually are among the first human beings, at least. I don't know what other creatures might have seen it, but among the first human beings to actually see that video. So we're really excited about what we have going on there with our brand new church initiative. It's a curriculum called Making Life Disciples. It's the first of its kind, unique program that will actually allow churches to put pregnancy care ministries inside their church. So to no longer really kind of, I guess this sounds sort of crass, but to outsource the work of pregnancy care to pregnancy centers, but to actually take that inside the church and use the transformative power of the church to help people with those decisions right inside the church. But I want to take a step back and talk a little bit more broadly about just digital engagement. So I came to CareNet about 18 months ago, and even though it was 2014 when I joined CareNet, when went to CareNet's website, I thought it was 1997. And so, if you know what I mean. And I think we had a couple thousand, maybe 5,000 people on Facebook, a couple thousand on Twitter. We actually didn't even know how much web traffic we had. And so one of my roles there was to address all of that. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can do that. It's not rocket science. There are some things that I think you could actually probably start doing tomorrow or Monday, when you go back to your office on Monday, after the snow clears out, hopefully, and to start increasing engagement, traffic, and just interest in your work, your blog, your organization, whatever it might be. So to paraphrase one of our former presidents, ask not what your audience can do for your website, but what your website can do for your audience. So when you're building a website or changing a website or doing whatever you're blogging or whatever you're doing online, you really shouldn't be asking yourself, you don't want to build something that will help you accomplish your goals. That maybe sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but you shouldn't be asking yourself, how can we build a website that's going to help us accomplish our goals? How are we going to reach our goals of traffic and exposure and subscriptions and all these other things? What you really should be asking yourself is, how can we build a site that is going to be a tool to help our visitors accomplish their goals and their ambitions and the things that they want to do and address their pain points? And then something magical happens, which is that you actually end up accomplishing your goals by helping other people accomplish their goals. So let me unpack that a little bit further. So basically what you're doing in a word, I suppose, or two words, is something called inbound marketing. Some of you might be familiar with that, but I'll explain what that means. Essentially what you're doing is you're creating a magnet, okay? So the old-fashioned way of doing things, I suppose, is that you have a bullhorn. Is that what they're called, a bullhorn? And a lot of animals coming up in this discussion. So you just scream out to the crowd and hope they're listening. You interrupt their lives in a lot of ways. Think about a TV commercial. You're watching your favorite show and then a commercial comes on, right? It's an interruption, right? We don't want to be interruptions anymore, right? People are getting smart to that whole thing, and they're skipping commercials. They're watching it on places where there aren't even commercials. So we need to be clever and create content that is going to be a magnet for folks. And so I just got a reminder that I have to speak at ProLifeCon. So I'll be right back. Oh, okay, good. All right, I'm in the right place. That doesn't always happen. So make sure you tell my wife. So this is what you're going to do in order to create a magnet that's going to help your visitors accomplish their goals. It's called inbound marketing. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to create personas. You're going to ask yourself, who are the people that we want to come to our website? Who are they? What do they care about? What are their pain points? You can literally create profiles, give them names, Joe Visitor and Jane Visitor and whatever they might be. You might have various audiences, and ask yourself those questions. Who are they? What do they care about? What are their pain points? And then you're going to start creating great content that answers their questions or scratches their itches, okay? So I could probably spend an hour talking about what is great content, right? But I'll say three things. I actually thought of this morning. Clever acronym here. You want to ace your content, okay? You want to ace your content. You want it to be authentic, consistent, and energetic. Authentic. I struggled for a while with this. I thought I was trying to write blog posts that I thought I was supposed to write, or I thought other people wanted to read. And then I said, you know what? Why don't I just write the blog post that I think I need to write? And I've become a much better writer since then. I'm being more true to myself, so my content is more authentic, and we try to carry that across our entire organization. You want to be consistent. You want to have some consistency to your messaging, so that your organization isn't saying different things in different places in different tones and all that. I mean, obviously there's going to be individual style among the people who are writing and creating content for you or your organization or your blog, but you want to have a consistency there. And energetic. I mean, if you're ever getting bored, if you're bored creating the content that you're creating, odds are that the people consuming it are going to be bored too, and then they're going to stop coming. So keep that energy level high. All right, so that's step two. So step one, persona. Step two, content. Step three, and this is sort of common sense, but sometimes people skip this or gloss over it. you have to push your content out, right? You can make the greatest content in the world, and you might get some organic traffic, and that's important, but you need to make sure that people are seeing it. So social media, search engine optimization, blogging, etc. Push that content out there. Next, now this is where it starts to get more interesting, and this is where the magic started happening in terms of what CareNet was doing. You're going to create certain content, the really special content that really scratches people's itches and answers their question, and you're actually going to put it behind a form that will require people to give you their email address in order to access that content. So this is going to be the sort of stuff that you're like, you know what, this is good enough. This took us enough effort. This is helpful enough. This is scratching enough itches, answering enough burning questions that we're actually going to make people, earn it, so to speak, by giving us their email address. And this is how you build your email list. And I'll tell you the results of this so that you don't think I'm just making this all up at the end. So you're going to put it behind. You're going to put your really good content behind forms, so that that will require downloaders to give you their email addresses. And then what you're going to do, and this is where some software can come into play in this whole inbound marketing framework that I'm talking about, that you immediately thank those people and follow up with them in an automated fashion, assuming you're getting enough people doing it. You probably can't write individual emails to everyone who's downloading your stuff, but you're going to start creating automated email workflows to thank and engage the people who have given you something. They've given you their email address. They've entrusted you with that. So you want to thank them and start to engage them in a polite and tasteful manner. And if they don't like it, they'll unsubscribe, and that's fine. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you want to start communicating with them regularly based on what got them in the door. So if you have, let's say one of the things that you're providing that folks have to give you their email address to download is a research study that you did. So those folks, you should keep them in a list, knowing that those are people that are interested in research and studies and stats and things like that. So you're going to want to continue communicating with them on a regular basis around that sort of thing. For us, we have folks who are coming to us simply because they just care about women and men who are, considering abortion, and they want to minister to them one-on-one. They want to sit down with them at a coffee shop and talk to them about this decision. So we provide them with tools to do that. So we have one in particular, 10 things not to do when a woman tells you she wants to have an abortion, and it's a tool to help what we call life advocates start to minister to folks. So they're not really going to be as interested in research studies and that sort of stuff. So we want to continue to communicate with them on a regular basis around those sorts of things, ministry tools, life advocate stuff, those sorts of things that are going to help them, again, answer their questions, scratch their itches. And then the next step is to repeat steps 2 through 5 over and over and over again, consistently creating authentic, consistent, energetic content, then putting the best of it behind forms, collecting email addresses, thanking people, and then following up with them consistently based upon the thing that got them in the door. Research, helpful tools, maybe it was a donation. That could be another way. So for the folks that actually get in the door through a donation, obviously you're going to want to talk to those folks a little bit differently. Sharing success stories, things like that, things along those lines. But again, consistent communication with those folks. So let me give you 3 quick examples. I already kind of gave you one. So for our life, so one of our personas that we kind of talked about was, I forgot what we called her, but let's call her for now, Jeanne, life advocate, right? So she just cares about those millennial girls that are considering abortion, and she wants to help them, right? So we created a tool called a white paper, 10 things not to do when a woman tells you she wants an abortion. It's not actually, I shouldn't even say white paper. It's a list, very practical stuff that you could just tomorrow sit down and actually talk through somebody, talk through a pregnancy decision with someone and start caring for and ministering for them. So that tool now sits behind a form on our website, and we've literally gotten thousands of email addresses as a result of posting that particular piece of content. We also obviously are a pregnancy center organization. CareNet is. We have an affiliate network of over 1,100 pregnancy centers around the country. So pregnancy center directors come to us for help. So we created something called 7 Keys to Becoming a Center of Excellence. Right? Another 5-page document maybe. About that much text per per point, really practical stuff, things you can implement that day. Thousands of people have downloaded that piece of information from our website and have given us their email address for the privilege of accessing that information. We also want to talk to the general public. So, John Q. Public. We had a much more clever name for that guy when we were thinking through this. But what does, just your average Joe who kind of cares about this life issue, what are the sorts of things that they want to do, want to get that's going to help them answer questions they have, address pain points, help them accomplish their goals? So one of the things that we thought that would be really helpful was to have all in one place, really just the most important latest statistics about abortion. How many abortions are there? Just all that sort of stuff that you kind of have to go to 10 different websites to get. So we put it all in one document, called it Top 25 Abortion Statistics in America, put it behind a forum. Again, thousands of people have downloaded that, and we've gotten thousands of email addresses as a result of that. So, and then I want to just say one quick note about our overall messaging, and a message that we're really talking about a lot here over these couple of days here at the March for Life, is this notion of being pro-abundant life. So you're going to see that. I talked about the C in my little ACE acronym was consistency. So you're going to see a lot of that coming out of CareNet in the next several weeks or months, hopefully, that we're really kind of talking about. We're not pro-life anymore. We're pro-abundant life, okay? And so we want to change the narrative a little bit, humbly, boldly, I suppose, audaciously, to use a popular word these days. So pro-abundant life, that's a message that you're going to see across the board in our materials. So the results. Let me just quickly get to the results here of all this stuff that I've talked about. We actually, so CareNet's been around for 40 years. So in the first 39 years of CareNet's existence, we generated X thousand email addresses. I won't tell you how big our email list is, but we had this number of email addresses. In the first year that we launched our new website, we actually doubled our email list. So it took us 39 years, email wasn't around, I guess, when we first started, but just go with me here. 39 years to get those first X thousand, and then 1 year to get that same number of email addresses over again. So we doubled in a year. And a subset of that is that we really had no email addresses, zero, from just regular people. All of our email addresses were donors or pregnancy center workers. We had no John Q. Publics in our email database. Now we have tens of thousands, okay, in 1 year. And if you look at our web traffic in December of 2014 when we launched the new website, and then look at it in December of 2015, a year later, we tripled our web traffic. So, and we did that simply by reversing the question. Rather than asking what we wanted to accomplish with our website, we said, how can we build a website that's going to help our visitors accomplish their goals, achieve their dreams, answer their questions, and scratch their itches? So there you have it, care-net.org. Just take a look at it, and hopefully you'll see some of the things that I talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. We appreciate you and your team and all the hard work you've been doing to help women and men choose life. I've had the pleasure of working and speaking with Vince, and I feel so blessed that we have him to give the Pregnancy Resource Center movement a big facelift, and we're really excited about the church outreach program. Next, I would like to tell you a little bit about Jeanne Mancini, whom you probably already know about. Since the fall of 2012, she has served as the president of the March for Life Education and Defense Fund. In this capacity, she proudly directs this nonprofit organization committed to restoring a culture of life in the United States, most notably through the annual March for Life, which a lot of people are in town for today. She previously worked here at FRC as my predecessor, focusing on the issues related to human dignity. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome back to the FRC stage, Jeanne Mancini.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. Well, it's great to be here with all of you this morning. Thanks for making it out. We've had lots of people have to cancel and go home, and we understand that, but ProLifeCon is all the more important today because we're going to need everybody to participate remotely in the March for Life. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk to you about our digital media campaign today, our tweet storm, in case of the snowstorm, the tweet storm. And then secondly, I want to talk to you a little bit about our theme. All right, pro-life and pro-woman go hand in hand. So first of all, for all of those of you who are watching today and for all of you who are sitting here in the audience, I want to ask you to unify behind our hashtag, which is Why We March. Hashtag Why We March. We've used this for many years, and it's been very powerful. We've been able to trend on Twitter to be the highest trend 2 years ago, I think, in the world. So it can be very powerful, but only if we all come together. And we should tell our stories, especially for those who can't come to the march today. Let the world know digitally why you're pro-life. Hashtag Why We March. Why are you pro-life? Why would you march? Every single one of us sitting in this room or watching has some beautiful story behind why we march, why we're pro-life. So use that very powerful hashtag to get behind the digital sort of mask and tell your personal story about why this issue is the human rights abuse of today and why it's so critical to you. So that's most important. Second of all, for those of you who aren't able to be here with us in person, be sure to watch the March for Life on TV today. You can watch it on EWTN, or you can watch it on our live stream app. You can also go to our website, marchforlife.org, and watch it there. Okay, it's going to be a fantastic lineup today. We've got Carly Fiorina coming, a pro-life businesswoman that many of you have heard of, and she embodies our theme so beautifully, so she'll be there. We also have a wonderful former football player, Matt Burke, who now is with the NFL working in development. He and his wife have a beautiful, beautiful story of converting to the pro-life movement through their own story of conceiving life, and he's going to share that. There's also a great story about how Matt, after he won the Super Bowl as a Baltimore Raven along with his team, was not able to go to the celebration at the White House because the President Obama, had said something the week before that he couldn't agree with in his conscience. The president said, "God bless Planned Parenthood," and Matt Burke couldn't go in good conscience and be part of that activity. So we're going to hear from Matt today. We're going to hear from Carly. We have a whole other host of incredible speakers. So I hope that you'll tune in at noon. And then for those of you who are here, the strong, the brave, the courageous, will be marching up Constitution Ave at 1 p.m. And for those who are in D.C., it's all the more important that you come today. We've marched for 42 years, and the march always goes on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. So a little bit of snow or a lot of snow isn't a sacrifice too big for us. We will march as we've marched every single year. So I mentioned our app. Be sure to download our app. It's new and updated, even if you've downloaded our app in the past. This one is great. It's a little bit more event friendly. So just go to the App Store and download March for Life 2016. And as I mentioned, you can follow along and get lots of other great information as well. Text. So we will stay in touch with everybody by text today. You can do that by texting March for Life, MARCH 4, the number 4, life, to 99000. And we've got lots of other ways to be involved in digital media. Check out our website, marchforlife.org, to check out more about that. And I love digital media, but what I'm really excited about this year is our theme. So if I can just finish by speaking to you for a few minutes about our theme this year. Pro-life and pro-woman go hand in hand. We're hearing a lot this year, and especially we're going to hear in the months ahead leading up to November, that to be pro-woman, you have to be pro-choice. Nothing could be further from the truth. And that's why we've chosen the theme this year. Pro-life and pro-woman go hand in hand. First, pro-life is pro-woman because the fact that a woman can be a mom is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a gift. It's not a liability. A woman's capacity for motherhood is something that she should be proud of. It's a miracle. It's something that she brings to the table. Even if she's never a physical mother, she brings it spiritually in who she is as a person to the table. And it's a beautiful gift, and our world would be a much lesser place if we didn't have that capacity for motherhood and women. So first and foremost, it's a positive thing. It's beautiful. Second of all, though, on the negative side, abortion is not good for women. That is a lie. It's not good for women psychologically. Study after study after study shows this to be the case. But lived experience also shows it to be the case. We'll hear today from a woman who regrets having had her abortion and who regrets having been involved in the abortion industry. And then we'll hear from many more women at the end of the march who courageously stand before the Supreme Court to share their testimonies of regret. And I should mention, in any crowd that we're speaking about this topic, that for anyone who has been involved in abortion, because many of our friends and families have, that there's always hope and healing. There's always the capacity for hope and healing. And people struggle with believing that after they've chosen that. But if there's anyone who's struggling with that, I'll be around for a couple minutes afterwards, and I'd be happy to talk to you about different kinds of groups that help to find hope and healing, because there certainly is. Also, physiologically, there are consequences to abortion. I'm looking out and I see my former colleague Chris Gasek out there, and he's done some really good research on this. I can tell you that chemical abortion in particular is very, very hard on women. I'll never forget when I sat here at Family Research Council one day talking to the father of Holly Patterson. Holly was a beautiful 18-year-old girl who died of safe, legal abortion in California. Chemical abortion in particular, but any abortion is not necessarily good for women. This isn't always exactly the case, what happens physiologically, but there are many studies that show that women who undergo abortion in their following, if they have a child after that, there are sometimes preterm births, which can lead to different difficulties. There can sometimes be infertility, and as I mentioned, even worse, there have been cases of death. And that's why we advocate for things like stricter abortion clinic regulations and what have you. And for some reason, the other side fights us on that. I'm not entirely sure why, because why wouldn't, higher standards for health be something that everyone would agree upon and be advocating for together? But sometimes abortion advocates equate access to abortion with what's good for women, but that's not always the case. And so we're here today to talk about why pro-life and pro-woman go hand in hand. And so I hope that you'll get that message out over digital media today, because it's an enormously important message. And we need to not only get it out today on the March for Life and the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, but this has to be the kickoff for a year ahead of telling the truth about life and about womanhood. So thank you very much. Very honored to be here with this crowd. It's my first speaking engagement today, and I am grateful to all of you for being here. I hope I get to see you over at the rally, and if not, I'm grateful for all of the digital work that you're doing. So thanks.
Jeanne, thank you for taking time to share with us about the march. We know that you have a very busy schedule today, and we wish you and your staff the best, especially navigating hundreds of thousands of people in the incoming storm. We will see you out there soon. Next, I would like to present to you Anne McElhinney. Recently, actually as recently as last week, I had the privilege of screening the powerful film Gosnell. And it is a Hollywood quality film about the abortionist Kermit Gosnell. Anne McElhinney is a journalist and film producer and director. Her most recent success is producing this movie about Kermit Gosnell. Please welcome Anne McElhinney to the stage.
I've got the scarf, I've got the hat, I've got the whole look here going on. It's actually very fitting that I am speaking here, given the fact that this is the March for Life, and also that everyone's focusing on how the digital age changes things. I could say that 2 years ago, I was very, very definitely pro-choice. And I'm not anymore because of one story. And one story can change the world, and that's why we made this film about Kermit Gosnell. I was a bit sad this morning to meet someone here who said they'd never heard of Kermit Gosnell. We're certainly going to change all that. And the story I want to tell you about is about one baby, and I've got to try and keep this together here. And I need you to do something for me today, and you have to do this for us. because we can change the world by doing things digitally. You have to right now get out your smartphone and like the Gosnell movie page right now, and get everybody else you know and people you've never met to like the page too. Another film was crowdfunded about Veronica Mars, just a teen drama. They got 91,000 people to give them money. We got 28,000 people, and I bet we've some of them here. And the rest of you still can, at gosnellmovie.com. Give $1 and make us have 100,000 people and not 28,000 people. Here's the story I want to tell you. On July the 12th, 2008, a little boy was born at 3801 Lancaster Avenue in Philadelphia. His mother intended for him to be aborted and for him to die. Kermit Gosnell was not an OBGYN and didn't know really how to do abortions, and certainly not abortions on babies who were 7.5 months old, as little baby boy A, as he came to be known, was at that point. When he was born and he was alive, Gosnell looked at him and said, "This baby is big enough for me to walk me to the bus stop." That baby, my husband makes a really good point about a lot of good points about a lot of things. And one of the points he makes is that a lot of people live long lives and don't do anything that changes the whole world. This baby, baby boy A, is going to change the whole world. He's already changed the whole world. His life makes a difference, and we're recording his life in this film. And we've written a book about Gosnell, and he will not be forgotten. And here's what happened. He was born alive and put into a Tupperware container, and he was so big that his legs hung over the side of it. And I'm not making this up. This is testimony from multiple witnesses who saw this baby alive and who described his short life. And he pulled himself together. And as the neonatologist who under oath was asked to describe how it would be to be that person, that 7.5-month-old baby boy A said, babies of that age feel cold. They're really sensitive to light, and they feel pain very acutely. Gosnell put a scissors in the back of this baby's neck and tried to sever his spinal cord and did not succeed. And the baby continued to live and to breathe. 3 of the people who worked at that abortion clinic, who were not nurses, who were very broken people, were so touched by this baby and this child's life that 3 of them took photographs. Those photographs are pretty much the reason why Kermit Gosnell is in prison today, serving 3 life sentences in Huntington Prison in Pennsylvania. I interviewed one of them. I'm just not going to say her name right now, but it'll be in the... anyway, I interviewed one of them, and she talked about taking the photograph of him. And then she actually went, one of the things Gosnell did was he got his untrained workers, he taught them how to do this thing called snipping, where he cut the back of the neck with the scissors. And he, and Adrian went to, sorry, that's one of the people, anyway, Adrian, went to prison for doing this. And I said to her, God, it must have been awful to go to prison. And she described it, 8 of them went to prison. And she said when they went into this women's prison, everyone shouted, baby killers, baby killers. And I said, my God, that must have been terrible. And she said, no, it didn't bother me. I've been in juvenile detention. She'd had a tough life. And she said, that didn't bother me. I said to her, what bothered you? And she said, the darkness, because I would see him. And I said, who did you see? And she said, I saw the baby. And all I could do was say, I'm sorry. This is why we're making this film. This is why we've made this film. We've finished, and it's really powerful. And people who have seen it already in a rough cut have said it has changed them. People who were very pro-choice are not so pro-choice anymore because they just didn't know. And I think one of the really important things, because Gosnell wasn't aborting babies, he was murdering babies. It's like, on the technical side. But Kirsten Powers, who some of you know, who wrote the most amazing op-ed in USA Today that changed this case in terms of the media, who shamed the media into covering this case, she makes a brilliant point. She talks about anyone who finds what Gosnell did disgusting, that he cut their necks, that they were alive, and that you're disgusted, your stomach is turning, you're just sick to your tummy over it. It's morally irreconcilable that you would find that disgusting and not the fact that legally you can do that in the womb. And that in this country, which sometimes you would think is very civilized, is pretty much in a very, very small category of countries on the planet Earth, only the worst places on the planet Earth where you can do that to a baby in the womb, basically up till 9 months. Amazing. And it's an amazing thing that I get to tell this story today, on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, on the anniversary of this monumental piece of legislation that made you have this kind of craziness going on in your own country. Don't forget, you've got to like the Gosnell movie page right now. You've got to get everyone you know to like the movie page. Gosnell movie, and gosnellmovie.com, and you can give $1. And when we talk about digital, here's the good stuff, because I've spent 2 years on this case. I've interviewed everyone, and I've gone through all the evidence at a level that is really unhealthy. But what was really amazing, and this is God bless America, we went out to the public and said to people, we'd like to make a movie about this. No one is going to make a movie about this. We weren't in competition with anyone. No one wants to make a movie about this. And 28,000 people turned up. 28,000 people went online and gave us $1. And some people gave a lot more than that. People gave $10,000. Somebody gave $25,000 the day after we came to the end of the first phase of the funding. And people give money all the time. There's a woman in Australia who sends $50 a month. We've had the most inspiring, and when you go to give $1 at gosnellmovie.com, read the comments. Read what people have written to us. Read the stories of the people that have written to us. This is where digital communications makes the huge difference. And for anyone out there who's watching this morning, like the page and give us $1. We can really change things. We're in an incredibly critical moment with this film. The film is done. Distribution is what matters now. And for distribution, there are 2 distributors already interested. They're looking at the Facebook page. They're looking at the number of people who give us money. The larger the number, the more difficult it is for them to refuse to distribute the film. It's as simple as that. Films about nothing. Veronica Mars got 91,000 people. We should beat that. We should beat it today. Why not? So get everyone you know to do that. Have I time to tell another story? Do I? When we made this film, during the making of this film, unbelievable things happened. Unbelievable things happened. And I don't even know which story to tell. I'm going to tell this one story. There is a story that really happened in this case. The grand jury met for nearly a year. And the grand jury are made up of regular people. They're like this bunch here who they come twice a week. They listen to this awful, awful evidence. They shifted through this awful evidence. They looked at these awful photographs and heard these appalling stories. And then one day a girl came in and they said, who are you? What did you? Well, I went there for an abortion. And what happened to you? Well, I started to kind of reconsider things when I was on the bed. And I said to Gosnell, and she was very pregnant, so it's a 3-day process. You guys know all about this. And she started to reconsider and she said to Gosnell, what happens to babies afterwards? And he said, we burn them. And the idea would be that she would go home that night, come back the next day and get more of this laminaria put in and all that. You guys know what that's about. And she started to feel really bad about that. And she went home and she spoke to her cousin. And, she was very upset and everything. And so try and picture this. She's in the grand jury. The grand jury have listened to a year of awful stuff, nightmare stuff, Dante's hell, like just an inferno of awfulness. And the ADA, Christine Wexler, says to this woman, so what happened? Oh, I went to Children's Hospital. Oh, I had my baby. My baby started kindergarten today. And for the first time in living memory, everyone in the grand jury stood up and clapped. It gets worse. The woman who plays that role in our film was a regular woman, a lovely lady that we found in Oklahoma. And she came, and the way in films you shoot things out of sequence? So she shot one scene, and then she came to shoot the scene in the grand jury. And she was in the corridor. And I said to her, hey, how are you? And she said, oh, God, come here. She's a young woman. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I've just read the script. And she said, that's my story. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I was having an abortion. And you're going to love this. I was having an abortion, and I had my clothes off, and I'm lying on the bed, and the nurse comes in, and the nurse said, "Here, listen to your baby's heartbeat. I'm just going to go outside for a minute, and then I'm going to come back in. We'll get going." And she said, "I just put my clothes on." I got out of there, and her granddaddy was outside in the car, and she said she got in the car, and she said to her granddaddy, "I'm not killing my baby today." And that girl, when I told my husband, because I kind of heard this story, and she just told me on the fly, and then I ran and told my husband about it, and he said, go back and ask her, would she do it on tape? Would she tell us that on tape? And she did. And when you tape an interview, the camera's here, and you're here, and you always say to the person, don't look at the camera, look at me, just so that their eye line isn't straight into the camera. Can be kind of weird. So she does the interview, and she told that story exactly as I told it, and then I didn't say anything. I just let her be. And she said, and I watch him now. He's 5. And I watch him now. I watch him breathing. And she said, that's a whole generation right there. And then she did this really strange thing where she looks directly in the camera and says, don't kill your babies. We had a lot of stuff like that happened. I'm going to stop right now. Please like the Gosnell Facebook page. Please go to gosnellmovie.com and give us $1. Thanks a million.
Having watched the movie, it is that powerful, and I encourage you to like on Facebook, Gosnell Movie. Anne and Phelim have done an incredible job with this movie. Next, I would like to introduce to you Lisa Smiley. Lisa is a blogger at lisasmiley.com, where she writes about family, motherhood, God, and politics. She is also a voice for Bound for Life International. We are unable to have Lisa with us here today because she just had her 4th child last week. Congratulations to Lisa and her family. However, Lisa kindly pre-recorded for us this message. Let's watch it now.
I am a full-time mother, and I took the plunge and started my own blog just last year. I've always been politically minded, but with my family and with raising our kids, I just felt like I didn't have any time. But with the elections coming up, I couldn't stay silent any longer, and so I just decided to take the plunge and start my blog. And you know, the mainstream media portrays Christians and pro-lifers like me really inaccurately and really unfairly. We are not weird, crazy, and uneducated, and I was just so sick of that portrayal. So I started my own blog to tell my own side of the story. And I write on issues about the family, motherhood, God, and politics, and especially about the sanctity of life, because my own life has been such a testimony of the pro-life cause. I've shared my story of how I am alive today because my Chinese mother broke the law and gave birth to me and my sisters. I was born in the 1980s under China's one-child policy, but because my mom valued her children, she refused to abort us and risked her own life to keep us safe from the government. I've also shared the story of my firstborn son Zeke, who was born with half a heart, and how my husband and I refused to abort him in the womb. I needed the world to know that we have experienced so much joy having him in our family, even despite all the hardships and all the health complications we've dealt with. Sadly, our son Zeke just passed away a few weeks ago, the day after Christmas. And we are still going through the grieving process even as we're preparing for this new baby. But even in Zeke's death, and even through the pain and suffering of losing him, we have chosen to celebrate his life. And we are so grateful for the many years that we've had with him. And because of my online presence, I've been able to share my testimony, and thousands of people have been touched and inspired by our story to choose and value life, even in circumstances like Zeke's. And I've been so humbled by what I've been able to do online. My stories have been shared tens of thousands of times, and I've received emails and messages from people all around the world telling me how my writing has inspired or challenged them in some way. So let me ask you this. Do you feel called to become more active, to share your voice or your message to spread the pro-life cause. Up to this point, we may have been comfortable with consuming knowledge online, but the thought of actually producing that knowledge may scare us. But I know that we must be the ones producing the content and not merely consuming it. We must write the narrative. God has called His church to be the head and not the tail. And I know that there are so many of us who feel that we are just being tossed to and fro by the cultural standards of our time. But there is a remnant, and there are those of us who are crying out to God for mercy on this nation, for the sin of abortion and the many other sins that our government and we the people have committed. So I exhort you and I ask of you, we cannot stay silent. 2016 is a critical year for our nation, and the pro-life movement is gaining so much momentum right now. And this may be the year, and this may be the Kairos moment when we can make a decisive impact. There is no better time to start than right now. It would help me and encourage me as a blogger to know that there are other voices that are sharing the same message of life and truth. If that is you, I encourage you to visit my blog, where my husband and I have developed some key fundamental resources on how you can get your own message out. We need more voices, and we need an army of like-minded activists who are passionate about life and also who know how to leverage the power of the internet. Our God is a very creative God, and if we will allow His creativity to touch us and to open us up to think outside the box to reach the next generation, I know that He will prove faithful, and He will lead us and guide us every step of the way. So thank you so much for allowing me to share my heart with you on this, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of ProLifeCon and the March for Life.
Lisa and James, Zeke has given you and your family love, joy, strength in the Lord. We are sorry to hear about the passing on Christmas Day. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your remarkable journey of faith and courage in giving life to your son, Zeke. I would like to now share a little bit about something that's going on here at FRC in terms of some of our work. Go to the next slide. These are some of the things we've been involved in. We did a Planned Parenthood, defund Planned Parenthood bus tour with Students for Life in this past fall. Also, be on the lookout for an issue analysis that is coming out in the next month or so. It's called Investigating Planned Parenthood and Research Using Aborted Babies. Going to the next slide. Another item we have that FRC has produced is ObamacareAbortion.com. Last year, we partnered with Charlotte Lozier Institute to put together this website. Because the government is not transparent about its abortion coverage in Obamacare, we took it upon ourselves to make this information available. And so if you go to ObamacareAbortion.com, you will see, and you can click on each state to find which plans in Obamacare cover abortions and which ones are pro-life. Overall, I wanted to tell you about some of the results. 59% of the plans on the exchange actually cover elective abortion. 2 states don't have any pro-life plans, and that's Vermont and Hawaii. This is actually down from last year, where 5 states did not have any pro-life plans. So we're making progress in that area. 8 states have plans with 85% or more that cover elective abortion. What about choice options? If you're looking for a plan because of the healthcare options that you want, but you can't because you only have 15% of the plans that are actually pro-life, it makes it very difficult to find a plan that works for the needs of your family. And actually 8 additional states have plans where 50 to 85% cover elective abortion. So I wanted to make that available to you. If you go to the next slide. There's really good news. We are winning. And this is actually from Guttmacher. I wanted to share with you. in the last 5 years, if you see from 2011 to 2015, there have been 288 pro-life laws that have been passed, which is nearly as much as in the past previous 15 years. And I wish Anne was here because in 2011 this happened. That is when Gosnell was convicted. That is when his trial came out. And I really think it has to do with the fact that it went mainstream. His story went mainstream and changed a lot of minds and hearts. We'll go back to this if we have extra time. We are ready with Chase Jennings on the mall. So without further ado, Chase is our radio producer for Washington Watch Live. So Chase, over to you if you're ready for us.
We are ready. Thank you, Arina. We are live on the National Mall here for ProLifeCon. Good morning. This year, the location is a little bit different due to some construction at the front of the mall. We're closer to the Washington Monument. So if you're a usual pro-lifer, March for Lifer, make sure that you're making your way a little bit further down the mall. But we've got a great group of people here for the march. As all of you know, the pro-life generation will not be denied. Cold, sleet, whatever. We're out here. I'm from Louisiana. I'm still out here. We got some from Michigan, Virginia, upstate New York, where we at, Colorado. Yes, so y'all are probably used to some of this. Yeah, so we're so let's just get some interviews and let's just see what the pro-life generation has to say. What's your name?
Eve Gleason.
Eve, and you're from Virginia, right?
I'm from Virginia. I'm with CareNet. Actually delighted to be out here even in the cold. You know, we represent over 1,100 pregnancy centers in the U.S. and Canada, and we're here to represent them because they are doing such great work. I was at a pregnancy center for over 10 years, and let me tell you, no woman wants to have an abortion. She considers abortion as a last resort because she feels abandoned, isolated, and alone, and we're here to be here for them, women and couples who might be considering abortion, and give them hope, compassion, and help.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Dee Dee, why don't you come up? Why don't you step up here? Dee Dee's got a crazy story of what she does. So, Dee Dee, why don't you tell us why you're here?
Hey, I'm Dee Dee Chisholm from Denver, Colorado, and we have a natural women's practice, OB practice, Bella Natural Women's Care, and we save babies. We believe all women deserve care with great dignity and reverence, and we have saved 2 babies through abortion pill reversal, which is something everyone needs to know. Abortionpillreversalhotline.com can save babies.
Well, thank you for that. So, say that. Give us that website one more time.
It's abortionpillreversal.com.
Thank you for that, Dee Dee. Appreciate it. And hotline.com. Okay, thank you, Dee Dee. And also, we're here with Mary. Also has an amazing story. Mary, why don't you tell us why you're here?
Well, I'm here because I was conceived in rape, and so many different times I hear people say I'm pro-life, except in the case of Mary Rathke. And that's really my story, and I want everyone to know that while the world might think that I'm a child of a rapist, God looks at me and says I'm a child of God. And we need to defend all life. We need to care for both victims, the mother and the child. We need to give her care and compassion because pregnancy is temporary, but death is permanent. And she will carry the guilt of that abortion, even though someone else raped her. And so we need to love them both.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, we're here live again out on the mall. I'll be back later, Chase Jennings, and we're throwing it back to you, Arina.
Thanks, Chase, and thanks for being out there. Next, we have Alison Howard, who's a dear friend of mine. She's the Director of Alliance Relations at Alliance Defending Freedom. ADF is working to serve, strengthen, and expand the Alliance on life, marriage, and religious freedom. Speaking on those issues, Alison has been featured on Fox News, ABC, NPR, and the Christian Broadcasting Network. Please welcome Alison to the stage.
Well, good morning. It's really good to see you all here. It's actually really even better to see Chase Jennings in the snow because he's from Louisiana and he's a friend of mine, and I know he's really struggling right now, so we'll say some extra prayers for him. I read a quote that said, it's from Oswald Chambers, and it said that service comes from an overflow of life, of love and devotion. And I think service like that, of us being out on the March for Life, on the mall, in the snow, being here this morning, though many of us were up late last night, is an act of service and devotion to our Lord. So thank you guys for being here. what's so neat about this special conference is we kind of get to talk as a family about what's worked this year, what's worked in getting the message for life out. So I work at Alliance Defending Freedom, as Arina mentioned. Alliance Defending Freedom is working to keep the door open for the spread of the gospel. It's that easy. We get to do a lot of great nonprofit legal work in the areas of life, marriage, and religious liberty. And this morning, I just want to get through some things that we've done on the life arena, specifically the defund Planned Parenthood message. So I know it's early, but who here can tell me, do you know how much Planned Parenthood gets in taxpayer dollars every day? Over 500 million a year. Breaks down to $1.2 to $1.5 million every day. That's our taxpayer dollars, right? So I like to joke that many of us in this economy can't afford to pay for anyone else's anything. Nonetheless, something we morally object to, like abortifacients and abortion-inducing drugs. So ADF has been working on comparing what Planned Parenthood says they do to what they actually do. So let's dive in. First off, this map, which I hope those simulcasting can see, compares the number of Planned Parenthoods licensed to do mammograms to the number of licensed mammogram facilities. And you'll see on the left that there are over 8,000 places that can do mammograms. There are how many that can do it, Planned Parenthood-wise? 0. Now, it's interesting as a comms-minded person to think, we hear Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood, say she does mammograms. We were actually in Wisconsin with my colleague Casey Maddox, and they said, well, Planned Parenthood does good things like mammograms. And he said, I'm really glad that's what you think. Let me read this off and explain this to them. So these truth nuggets are kind of what we stirred up and put into an aesthetically pleasing way to be shared. If you want to go to the next slide. It made it all the way to the floor of the Senate. This is Senator James Langford out of Oklahoma, who's doing a wonderful job on life. That to me says that good information goes really far. Good information is needed by leaders and legislators across the board. So ADF and its allies on life, like FRC and others, are working really hard to push out good information to combat those that Planned Parenthood and others want to lie about abortion. So we took that, and that was so successful that we joined with Charlotte Lozier Institute and started breaking it down state by state. People started asking, great, the national map looks good, but what does my state look like with Planned Parenthoods? So here you'll see, for Arizona, for example, on the left, there's 183 better healthcare alternatives to only 10 Planned Parenthood locations in Arizona. So I just included a couple states. Pennsylvania is the same. Pennsylvania is a great example, guys. If I'm talking too fast, it's because I'm from New Jersey. I had coffee, and I only have 10 minutes. So just track with me. Pennsylvania is a really good example that you'll notice that Planned Parenthood operates and locates their facilities in places that are heavily populated, and they're not spread out across the state, So when they say things like they're fighting against whole women's health care right now at the Supreme Court, whole women's health care is a case that would make sure that doctors have admitting privileges and that there's common sense medical regulations, like the hallways are wide enough for a stretcher to get through. Planned Parenthood is fighting against those very medical regulations. And you know what? I went on their website. Whole Women's Health is saying, women, if those clinics shut down, women will not be able to get the help that they need. And I say to that, women can't already in many states because you've only chosen to go where the money is. Does that make sense? So please push back on that. When they say that they're really concerned about accessibility, these state maps show that that's exactly not the case. So let's go to the next state. Here's Oklahoma. That's Senator Langford's home state. Rhode Island. Anyone here from Rhode Island? Did you come all the way down? Good. Okay, good. They only have 1. This is South Carolina, only has 2. And you have so many other options that are doing things like mammograms and are not caught up in the scandals that Planned Parenthood is. Scandals like alleged fraud, waste, and we know failing to report rape and sexual abuse of young girls. So that's heavily documented on adflegal.org if you want to check it out. But if you care about women, you care about girls, and you'll care about those cases. New Jersey, I had to include, and I think that might be the last one. Do we have more? And Kentucky. So, some wonderful Twitter sphere person, which I know we're all heavily involved. That's what this is about. Her name's Jackie Greggs, jumped online and started tweeting these maps at Planned Parenthood. And I think this was, to me, a great example of how this works. you join with partners who have the information, you put it into an aesthetically pleasing, digestible medium, and Twitchy picked it up, which you guys know is Michelle Malkin's website, and it said, I think Planned Parenthood may be in need of women's health care themselves in light of what Jackie Gregg is currently doing to them. So she was able to tweet out each state map, and you see people retweeted that, and so that was kind of a cool use of a tool that we made. The next thing I'm really excited about is getyourcare.org. This is an alliance effort to take that national map and those state maps and put it into an actually clickable website that you could find out exactly where those other options were for you. The reason I love this is because we're all on our phones all day. You're on your phones right now taking pictures, tweeting. Mine's right here. I saw people tweeting as they're moderating panels yesterday, which is amazing. But we're on our phones. And so when you're maybe a woman looking for basic care, I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight to you, getyourcare.org is something we should all be pushing out, not just the allied groups here in DC. Getyourcare.org, as you'll see on the next slide, has an amazing network of allied groups behind it, promoting it, pushing it out. And it's really, really simple. And great job to ADF's digital team for making it look so clean and clear. If you go to the next slide, you're able to go in here and find a location near you. So you could easily jump on and type in your zip code, and it narrows it down and shows you, as you'll see on the next slide, where the options are near you. So this is Huntsville, Alabama. We've got some Alabama folks in our office, and you'll click on those little dots, and you'll be able to see the website, the phone number, the location, physical address of these better facilities. And so this counters Planned Parenthood's claim that they're the only provider of women's health care, that there's no other players, and also builds the case that we have, as the pro-life movement, the compassionate answer. Then we are for women. I think it's really neat to point this out, and I want to thank you guys, because this is only from you guys. Really just us all coming together as a family that believes in life and advocates for it. That, we come up with talking points, right? And one of them was redirecting funds. That was never picked up in the past. Now we have a historic vote in Congress to redirect funds, to defund Planned Parenthood. And I'm flipping through Glamour magazine, which I'm not shameful that I was reading that, because it's for research. And Carly Fiorina did an interview with S.E. Cupp, who's a conservative pundit and TV host. And Carly Fiorina is asked by S.E. Cupp, what are you going to do when you defund Planned Parenthood? And just like that, our next answer was, we're going to redirect funds to better community health clinics for women. And in that, Glamour called Sarah Flores, who's our campaign director, and fact-checked it. And Sarah goes, and guess what? No Planned Parenthoods do mammograms. And I like to think, how did that get into the hands of Sarah Flores and Carly Fiorina? I don't know. Probably because you guys are tweeting it out. Probably because we joined together and decided this is what we're going to push forward. So please don't think that a tweet doesn't matter, a post doesn't matter. You truly never know. Now we have presidential candidates mentioning it in Glamour magazine. That's an audience we could never reach before. So that should encourage you. It goes up. I don't know how. Maybe one day we'll get to see that. So another effort on defund Planned Parenthood, we did 10,000 people changed their profile pic to defund PP. We held a press conference in our offices with representatives, leaders of organizations, just to launch this and show that it's pro-woman, it's pro-life, and it's a larger alliance. So when I talk about the alliance, I just want you to know it's just all of the pro-life groups working together. And that's what we need. We need you guys, we need pro-life groups working together in unity. I think that's what we're doing this weekend. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, we're done. I just want to thank you guys. A couple other things to mention is that those CMP videos, I know you guys watched them, and it was frustrating that others did not watch them as much. We launched a campaign called Just Watch One. So I ask you to join that if you'd like, and just watch one, encourage other people to just watch one, because we know when people see the facts, they can't unsee that. And we've helped promote and push 6 million people to watch these videos. So continue to do that as an alliance. We're doing a great job. Thank you guys. Thanks for being here. Stay warm today. God bless.
Thank you, Alison and ADF, for your partnership and dedication toward educating people about the real Planned Parenthood. Next, we actually had to move some things around but it's perfectly aligned. I want to actually welcome Family Research Council's president, Tony Perkins, who will announce this year's Digital Pro-Life Pioneer Award winner. Let's welcome him.
Good morning. Good to see you all, and glad to have folks from across the country join us. Welcome to the blizzard of 2016. We'll wait to see how that goes. But we're thankful for the opportunity to be here and gather for a noble cause. It's been 43 years, but we have not forgotten, nor have we given up. And I think we're here in part to continue to send the message that we will not give up, we will not stop until each and every life, born and unborn, is embraced into the American family and protected under our laws. And I want to thank each and every one of you here today that is a part of the pro-life movement, and thank the thousands of folks across the country that have joined via technology to be a part of this event here today. Well, I have the distinct honor today of presenting our annual award. In less than 1 year, David Daleiden and his organization, the Center for Medical Progress, were able to achieve really almost the unthinkable. As a direct result of their work, the CEO of Planned Parenthood, the #1 abortion provider in this country, was made to appear before a congressional hearing to try and defend the indefensible, the selling of the body parts of unborn aborted babies for profit. In addition, 7 states have put forth measures that would defund Planned Parenthood since last August. I think it's safe to say that even the most optimistic of us in the pro-life movement would not have thought that this would have been possible such a short time ago. As you all know, David's groundbreaking investigation, the videos captured the attention of the country, and even the liberal mainstream media could not ignore it. They had to report on what David and his team had uncovered, the horrors of what Planned Parenthood and their employees were doing that was caught on tape. Now, let's keep in mind that none of this would have been possible without the powerful capabilities of the internet through social media platforms like YouTube and others. Indeed, the amazing success that David and the Center for Medical Progress have been able to achieve should inspire all of us. And it's a compelling reminder of the impact of courage combined with the digital pro-life activism and what the two combined can accomplish in exposing the tragedy of abortion and helping rebuild a culture of life in this country. Today I'd like to present the Digital Pro-Life Pioneer Award to David Daleiden. David, would you come on up? I'm going to read the citation. In recognition of your groundbreaking work in digital pro-life activism, your faithfulness and visionary leadership, and your commitment to protect the very smallest and weakest in our society. Together we grieve the lives lost, celebrate the lives protected, and cheerfully fight for generations yet unborn. David, thank you.
Well, thank you, Tony and FRC. It's definitely an honor to receive that, and it's an honor to be here with all of you today, and also to be joining everyone who is joining us via digital media right now. One thing that I've been reflecting on a lot over the past couple of days, because it's just a few weeks ago, just last week actually, it was the 6-month mark from the time when CMP put out the first undercover video on July 14th, 2015. So it's now been 6 months since the project release began. And 6 months later, there's still a lot of unanswered questions from Planned Parenthood, and there's still a really glaring lack of accountability and transparency from Planned Parenthood in the face of allegations that are as troubling as the as the Planned Parenthood sells baby parts revelations, and that have captured the attention of so many people across the country and across the political spectrum. So for example, Planned Parenthood 6 months later still can't tell us or won't tell us how much money they have received from companies like STEM Express from 2010 to 2015 total in exchange for supplying fetal body parts. They won't tell us that, and we don't know the answer to that. Planned Parenthood still can't explain why the chief medical officer for one of their biggest affiliates endorsed an advertising brochure that was advertising financial profits for abortion clinics that would partner with STEM Express to harvest fetal tissue. They still can't explain, and they haven't even commented on, their senior director of medical services describing partial birth abortions, flipping the baby to a feet first position in order to extract more intact organs for resale. There's a whole host of other issues and topics that Planned Parenthood is totally ducking on and hasn't been able to address and hasn't been able to answer in the past 6 months. And we are at a really fortunate time in history now in 2016, where 15 years ago, when the baby parts issue was last in the public eye and last a part of the national discourse on abortion, it was kind of a flash in the pan media-wise for a couple of months, and then the mainstream media was able to bury it. The then CEO of Planned Parenthood was able to go on TV and say, "Oh, it would be terrible if anybody were doing something like this," but we're not doing. Even all the information was coming from a Planned Parenthood clinic, but there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no YouTube or Facebook, there was no Twitter, there were no online digital activists to call them out on that, and so the story was able to be buried. And we had to wait another 15 years for somebody to really focus on it again, and for the barbarism of harvesting and selling aborted baby parts to penetrate into the national discourse again. And so we're at a really fortunate time in history now where it's not possible for the mainstream media to bury this story the way that they did before, and the way that they want to do. I mean, they're working overtime. I have to take the interview calls sometimes, and they've been working very, very diligently, hand in hand, some of them, with Planned Parenthood, in order to try to bury the story and try and make it all go away. But they can't, because the other thing that they can't deny, and that they haven't been able to deny in the past 6 months, is that any of the people captured on video are their top senior level staff, their top level medical directors and national executives, and are the people who form the backbone of Planned Parenthood. And they can't argue, and they can't say that they didn't say the words that they say. Their words and their statements and their attitudes and their law breaking is captured for forever, for the future, on those videotapes. And we're going to continue to ask those questions, all of us, until we get those answers. And I think that whether those answers come from journalists who actually do their job and do a good job of following up on all the revelations and all the different pieces of the scandal, whether those answers come out of the ongoing select congressional committee that is gearing up and ramping up to wield their full subpoena power for the next year to get to the bottom of what Planned Parenthood has been doing with baby parts and money, whether those answers come from the multiple state criminal investigations that are still ongoing, or whether they come out in the litigation process, in the lawsuits that Planned Parenthood and their allies have so unwisely brought recently. Those answers are going to come out, and that other shoe is going to drop. And so I think that I am very convinced and very hopeful that 2016 is going to be a watershed moment for abortion and for the pro-life movement. It's going to be a watershed moment in our history for how we talk about unborn children and how we treat unborn children in our country. And so I just want to encourage all of you to share that vision. I invite you to share that excitement, and to keep at your post wherever you've been called to be faithful to it, to be faithful to that work, that piece of the vineyard that you've been given to work on, to acknowledge God, to be a sign of hope to those around you, to take the next right step. And I think together we will see a day when state-subsidized, industrial-scale child killing is no longer the norm in America, and a day when there's no longer a price tag that's put on human life. So thank you.
Thank you, David. We appreciate your boldness and your courage. Let me just tell you why I believe we are going to ultimately win in moving this nation back to a predominantly pro-life nation. 43 years, and some in this room have been involved in this for 43 years. But I want you to look around. The pro-life movement is not getting older. It's getting younger. The pro-life movement is not going away. It's getting bigger, it's getting bolder, and it's coming after you, and it will win.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, David. We couldn't think of anyone more worthy of receiving that award than you, David, because you have really had groundbreaking work that has had a snowball effect on so many things. 13 state investigations, 8 states defunding, and a continuing investigation now in Congress. Next, I would like to introduce to you Ryan Bomberger. Ryan is a creative professional, citizen journalist, and co-founder of the RadianceFoundation.org. He and his wife Bethany founded the Radiance Foundation, which is an educational nonprofit based on the belief that every human being has irreplaceable intrinsic value. Welcome back to our stage, Ryan. Let's give him a hand.
Good morning, everybody. Anybody in here scared of snow? Well, that's good. That's good. I've lived in the South for the past I don't know how many years, so I'm really excited about the potential of 30 plus inches of snow. But see, when you're a pro-lifer, you're used to adversity. Anybody agree? We are not fair weather activists. So, my organization is the Radiance Foundation. My wife and I founded it a few years ago because we were passionate about educating people about social issues, all in the context of God-given purpose. And so we launched the Radiance Foundation. Our Twitter handle is Life is Purpose. I don't know if this is on the screen. Maybe it's connecting. There, not there. Not there. Oh, it's not recognizing. Well, I could just talk without the images, I guess. Or is it coming up? Not at all. Okay, then I'm just going to talk. So you can follow us at Life is Purpose. It's a radical notion, unfortunately, in 2016, that somehow to say that every human life has purpose, you're the extremist. Well, extremists also abolish slavery, so we're in good company. We started the Radiance Foundation because we firmly believe that every life has purpose from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death. And being someone who is in a family of adopted kids. We have 10 adopted in my family. They're 15. 6 brothers, 6 sisters. Being pro-life is just part of my DNA. I had parents who defied the myth of the unwanted child and brought in children that the world said should have been aborted, all of us coming from broken backgrounds, and that's how adoption happens. It happens out of brokenness, and then there's restoration. And to have come from that background, just very passionate about the fact that every single human life, regardless of their story, regardless of the brokenness, has incredible intrinsic value. And so when we talk about Planned Parenthood, I'm hoping that I can actually get this. I'll just plug this in again because I'm really hoping that this can work. I'm a creative professional, and it's not that I need my visual aids here, but I really need them. Anything coming? Thank you. There we go. I have no problem, trust me, growing up in a family of 15, when you're a middle child, I have no problem just talking, but there's something that you can't really express without the video. And so if we have the audio up on this, that's great. I want to talk about, this is my little family here. Just want to give you a little background to understand why I'm just slightly biased about the issue. This is an article that I found just this past summer. It's an article that was in my parents' house, and it was an article from 1977. And you can see the title of it, Unwanted Children Find That They're Wanted. They had no idea what they were getting in for. We're a multiracial family, black, white, Native American, Vietnamese. We just kind of a reflection of America. And this is a picture, present day, of what unwanted looks like. This is all 65 of us. All my brothers and sisters, their spouses, and their children. Because two parents wanted to just love those that the world said would be unwanted and unloved. So that's my bias. That's why I want to talk about Planned propaganda or Planned Parenthood. And this is why we do, through the Radiance Foundation, what we do in creating the content that we do. And we love the fact that social media enables us to be able to share this kind of content. We can circumvent mainstream media, which I don't know if you noticed, they're not really all about telling the truth. Anybody in here notice that at all? Yeah. And which is why I love Frederick Douglass. Back in the day, slavery abolitionist, former slave, had to start his own newspaper because mainstream media at that time, surprise, wasn't telling the truth about slavery. So he had to begin the North Star because he had to educate the public about the injustice of slavery. And here we are, more than 100 years later, having to do the same thing. But we have the tools at our disposal to be able to, as I said, circumvent mainstream media and get the truth out there. And this is one of the things we want to highlight. Distortion. 1 in 5 women. See, I'm all about this. Here we go. Peek out. Abortion. Distortion. 1 in 5 women in this country depend on Planned Parenthood for health care. More than 2.5 million people every single year. You know, I love what Planned Parenthood always talks about how they trust women. They trust them so much they have to lie about anything and everything. One of the memes that we've created in addition to the video, Planned Parenthood's $1 billion lie. And they say this all the time. 1 in 5 women depend, this is actually the quote verbatim from Cecile Richards, 1 in 5 women in this country depend on Planned Parenthood for their health care, more than 2.5 million people every single year. Well, if you weren't raised on Common Core math, you can actually take the total number of women between the ages of 15 and 64, that's 105.7 million. Planned Parenthood claims to have 2.68 million clients, and you do that math, it's not 1 in 5, it's 1 in 40. And of course, all those supposed clients aren't all women either. But this is the lie. They don't trust women enough with the truth. And we're going to hear this all day today, the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and the hangers will be out from the pro-abortion activists. And I love this because Planned Parenthood, who perpetuates this lie about the hangers, actually disproved their own lie back in 1959. This is a series of memes we created. This talks about, in 1959, their own medical director, Dr. Mary Calderon, said that abortion is no longer a dangerous procedure. 90% of all illegal abortions are presently being done by physicians. She also said, in 1957, this is at a medical conference that Planned Parenthood held, there were only 268 deaths in the whole country attributed to abortions of any kind. Call them what you will, abortionists or anything else. They are still physicians. They must be doing a pretty good job. So we just say, holster those hangers. But this is what Planned Parenthood does. It's all about distortion. It's all about abortion distortion. Remember when David Daleiden's videos came out, Center for Medical Progress's videos came out. At the same time, as soon as those videos hit, Planned Parenthood, all of a sudden, their website was supposedly hacked. Who hacked Planned Parenthood's website? So this is the page that came up. Our site is not available due to an attack by extremists. If your site's unavailable, then your home page would not be available. But this is what they do. And the question that should be asked by any journalist of any value is, what real healthcare organization fakes a website hack? Planned Parenthood is not a healthcare organization. They're a political organization, and they will manipulate and exploit anything they possibly can. And this is why we have to keep on sharing this. And quite honestly, it's easy to be corrupt when you kill for a living. Alliance Defending Freedom, I love the group, not only because they represented us in defending our civil rights against the National Association for the Abortion of Colored People, NAACP. They also did some extensive research into Planned Parenthood's defrauding of Medicaid and over $140 million in stealing from the poor that Planned Parenthood always talks about how they're serving. But if you're going to be corrupt in killing human life, I don't think accounting or anything else is going to be at the top of your list as far as veracity. That's not what they do. In fact, CMP's video really revealed exactly what Planned Parenthood is all about. And I love it because sometimes the pro-abortion side reveals those honest little tidbits. And I love this. The CEO of STEM Express actually revealed the truthful nature of Planned Parenthood. She said they're all about volume. And so we agree. This is Pump Up the Volume.
Volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume. Abort.
Planned Parenthood has volume. They're a volume institution.
Pump up the volume, pump up the volume. Pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
I'm Cecile Richards. This is unacceptable.
Yes, you're right, Cecile. It is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that over $500 million funds a corrupt organization that lies daily to the American public. One of our fact sheets is called Planned Parenthood's $1 billion Big Fat 3% Lie. This actually started in 1995. It was in an op-ed in New York Times where a Planned Parenthood board member was defending Planned Parenthood and said, well, abortion's only 3% of our services. Well, quite honestly, it doesn't matter whether it's 3% or 1%, even if it were 0.5%. It'll be like the KKK saying, well, only 3% of our services or our actions is lynching. But we do a lot of community building. I mean, even the KKK runs food drives, people. So it doesn't matter. Any seeming amount of beneficence that you offer does not make up for the fact that you kill human life. And this meme, it shows how the only service, quote unquote, that increases at Planned Parenthood is abortion. And when you look at the vital medical services at Planned Parenthood, the last 5 years, and now with their newest annual report, the last 6 years, they've only declined. Breast cancer exams have declined 41.3% in the last 5 years, 58.1% drop in Pap tests, and prenatal care, which they barely offer at all, is an abysmal 18,684. It's a drop of 53.8%. But the one service that they offer, the one service that increases in volume every year is abortion. And here's one thing that really gets me. This is one of the tweets from Planned Parenthood. Every child deserves the opportunity to live up to their God-given potential. This from an organization that doesn't believe in God until they believe in God, little g God, of course. This is the organization that talks about Black Lives Matter. Well, when do they matter? Because if lives matter depending on age and geography, then they don't really matter. And this is the organization that in New York City, the home of Planned Parenthood, more black babies are aborted than born alive. And yet they have the audacity to tweet something like that. For every 1,000 babies that are born alive in New York City, black babies, 1,180 are aborted. And here they're tweeting Black Lives Matter. And people buy it up. This is one of our billboards that was denounced by the NAACP, denounced by Planned Parenthood as racist. We were extolling the fact that Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, by the way, and I don't have to apologize for that like liberal politicians. All lives matter. But we were, sending this out years ago, way before the deeply dishonest hashtag movement. And this is important. This is important because I think so often, especially online or in person, we are afraid to tackle some of these tough issues, particularly when it crosses color lines. And I just want to encourage you, don't be afraid. I'm going to skip past this. I'm not trying to do a shameless promo, so we'll go past this. But I would encourage you to read, tweet, and repeat. As a citizen journalist, we do an extensive amount of research. I would encourage you as an online activist, read. Don't just read the pro-life side, but read the pro-abortion side so you can understand their arguments. It's a little easier to dismantle them when you understand where they're coming from. And there's so many incredible resources out there. And tweet, whether you're tweeting, whether you're on Facebook or Instagramming, there is a wealth of great content, whether video, graphic memes, or articles, to be able to send out there. We are the ones who are educating the public. America's news media has abdicated its role as America's watchdog. And that's what we are supposed to do. That's what we need to do. And then you just keep repeating this. If they're going to keep repeating the lie, we can keep repeating the truth. So in the end, we are able to liberate people on so many levels, save lives, lives like mine, born as a result of rape. I'm that 1% that is used to justify 100% of abortions. But God has given us tools to be able to combat this and to be able to counter this. So I want to encourage you, don't ever be discouraged. We have the truth on our side. We have momentum on our side. And even though after today's march, I don't know whether it'll be 100,000 or 200,000, but we have millions across this country that are fighting to not just defund Planned Parenthood, but abolish the evil institution of abortion. God bless you.
Thank you, Ryan. And if you want to know more about Ryan's story, actually, he's one of the young people I profiled in my book, No Fear. And his whole story is in a story, he and Bethany and the Radiance Foundation. Great work. I am so excited to see what Ryan and others like him are doing to advance this message. It's scaring the other side, believe me. They are scared. All right, I have the opportunity now to introduce a friend. He's also the majority whip in the House of Representatives, Congressman Steve Scalise. He represents the 1st Congressional District. But before I bring him up, I want to just tell you a little bit. Steve and I were elected the same time back in 1995, sworn into office in 96 in Louisiana, so we've known each other for over 20 years. And he has a 100% pro-life record. And I'm not just talking about a record. All right. Now, I know a lot of politicians who have pro-life records, but then there are others who actually work to advance the pro-life cause. And look, I'm as hard on the Republicans as I am on the Democrats, on all politicians when it comes to giving lip service to the things we care about. But I want to tell you just a little bit behind the scenes of how things have been unfolding and why there's some importance in what has just taken place on the reconciliation vote. When it appeared that our efforts to defund Planned Parenthood, the wheels were coming off in the funding mechanisms a few months ago, I got with Steve and we began looking at other alternatives of how we could go after this funding. And that's where we decided that reconciliation could be used. And here's why this is important. Now, Steve went to other members of the GOP to convince them to get on board with this. He was kind of the spearheaded this effort. And here's what's significant about what is taking place, where the Congress, the people's representatives, have voted to take the lion's share of Obamacare away, but have also voted to redirect the money that has gone to Planned Parenthood, about 80% of it, away. That has gone to the president for the first time. Now, the president vetoed it. There'll be an override vote, but it rests on the shoulders of the president. He's the one that has decided to keep this forced partnership between taxpayers and Planned Parenthood. But here's the other significant thing about this, and this is lost on a lot of people. We have now shown that we can defund Planned Parenthood with 51 votes in the Senate through reconciliation. What happens when we get a pro-life president? The obstacles are gone. This will go to the president, and we will see this forced partnership between Americans and Planned Parenthood ended. Folks, we're making progress, and let us not lose heart in what we're doing. Please help me welcome Congressman Steve Scalise, the Majority Whip. Steve?
Well, thank you so much, Tony, for your leadership here at Family Research Council. The work that we did back in the Louisiana legislature, you see so many legislatures all across the country taking on and confronting the battle in the pro-life movement. And we've been getting more success. But if you just look at Louisiana as a test case, back in the mid to late 1990s when we were serving in the legislature, we've had a lot of big battles in the pro-life movement. But back then, we were in the minority. In fact, maybe about a third of the House and Senate were Republican. And in some cases, we even had a Democrat governor, and yet we were still able to advance on a number of different fronts by staying in the battle, the pro-life cause, to the point where Louisiana is now ranked as the most pro-life state in the nation. And it doesn't just happen by itself. It happens because of a lot of hard work and strong leadership. And we were fortunate to have Tony serving alongside with us in the legislature back then. And, of course, the work that you're doing now with Family Research Council is so important in working with us in Congress so that we can fight and win more battles. And part of this includes changing hearts and minds across the country. But you've got to be in the battle to do it. It's important to have actual votes on the House and Senate floor so you can get people on record. And so as we work to advance the cause, it's important that we don't lose sight that each of those battles helps us advance those causes. I've studied the history of some of the pro-life wins that we've seen in Washington, going back to the Hyde Amendment. Henry Hyde, when he came to Congress in the 1970s, not long after Roe v. Wade, said that he wanted to actually start putting riders in legislation to block taxpayer funding of abortion. And in fact, we've been able to maintain all of those Hyde Amendment riders that have come through any of the spending bills. That often gets lost in the battles that we're having. But even with Barack Obama as president, we have been able to maintain all of the Hyde Amendment riders and even advance a few of them. Clearly, we haven't gotten all of the things we want. But even when you go back to when Congress passed a ban on partial birth abortion, it started off with a little-known congressman named Charles Kennedy. And Charles Kennedy came to Congress, again, not long after Roe v. Wade, and he wanted to fight on a number of different fronts. He actually filed a constitutional amendment to protect unborn lives. I wasn't able to get that bill moved through, but he didn't give up. He kept fighting, and ultimately, he identified an area where he felt he could make some progress. In fact, he's the one who coined the term partial birth abortion and exposed the barbaric practices to the point where not only was he able to build support amongst House Republicans, but even as a member of the minority was able to get ultimately signed into law by Steve Chabot when George W. Bush became president, that ban on partial birth abortion. So that was actually vetoed by Bill Clinton twice, but finally signed into law by George W. Bush. And that gets to the point of why these battles are important to move legislation through the process, but also what is so importantly at stake this November when we're going to be electing a new president. I think most people across the country know just what the real philosophy and agenda of Barack Obama is. In so many ways he's wanted to change this country, but he's been somebody that we've battled with on a lot of pro-life fronts. But if you look at the fight over Planned Parenthood, it really was a game changer. I'm glad that y'all celebrated the work that was done by the Center for Medical Progress. It was so important that the whole country got to see what's really going on at Planned Parenthood. And so I want to thank y'all for recognizing the work that they did to expose what was going on in a way where people could see it. The videos that got out really, I do think, helped change the public discourse. And so one of the things we did last year, and there were a few important wins that we had on the House floor. We didn't get some of those all the way to the president's desk, but first of all, we actually passed a bill out of the House that I think one day will get signed into law called the Pain Capable Act, a bill that bans all abortions after 20 weeks. This is something that my good friend and colleague Trent Franks has been working on for years. We finally got that bill to the House floor. In fact, last year I was just maybe not even a year in as the House Majority Whip, and we worked very closely with the Family Research Council and other allies in the pro-life movement. And we wanted not only to bring that bill to the floor, but we wanted to make sure it passed. And there was some question whether or not we could get a majority vote in the House to pass a bill that bans all abortions after 20 weeks when scientific evidence shows that the baby can feel pain. And so I did something that had never been done before. The job of the Majority Whip is to help get the bills that are our priorities in leadership passed with 218 votes. And that means you whip the members, you survey the members to find out where they are, and if you don't have enough votes, you work and continue to move the members until you get to 218 votes. And for whatever reason, as I was talking to my staff about how we could get this passed when some people were saying it might not pass, we found out that never before had a pro-life bill been whipped. where leadership actually said this is a priority and we are going to work to make sure that it gets passed. In some cases you had votes to go to war. That's not a bill that you whip people on. If you're for going to war, against going to war, that's an individual member's choice, and typically leadership of either party doesn't pressure members into coming on to passing something like that. But I started questioning the staff, and I said, why would we not whip a pro-life bill? Going to war is not part of who I am as a Republican. It's not part of our party's platform. Having a strong national defense is part of our platform. But as Ronald Reagan showed, peace through strength says you want strength so that you don't have to go to war. But if you have to, you have that ability to do it. But it's not in any plank or our platform as a Republican Party to go to war. It is in our platform to defend life. And I said, why would we not use all of the tools that we have, especially in the whip's office, to advance that cause? And so I took a unique step of whipping that bill. And in fact, making sure as we weren't quite where we needed to be on the vote, to talk individually some members to help get us there. And we brought that bill up and we were able to pass it with a majority vote in the House. Went over to the Senate. Obviously, they haven't passed it. They have their own rules that block them from getting a lot of bills to the president's desk, the 60 vote requirement. And I don't agree with all of the rules that they have over there, but right now that's the process they use. But we got that bill out of the House. And I am convinced that one day that bill will get signed into law. But as we were fighting last year and we decided we were going to use this tool called reconciliation, which is a one-time opportunity you have to get a bill to the president's desk, not only with a majority vote in the House, but with a majority vote in the Senate rather than 60 votes in the Senate. And you can only do it if the House and Senate agree on a budget. And so one of the things we were able to do, finally last year having a Republican Senate for the first time since we took the majority in 2010, we were able to get an agreement with the House and Senate on a budget that got to balance in 10 years. First time since 2001 that the House and Senate agreed on a budget that gets to balance. It shouldn't take that long to get that kind of agreement, but it shows you how far apart we are. When Democrats were in charge of the Senate, they never wanted to get to a balanced budget. But if you get that agreement, you have one opportunity a year to send a bill to the president's desk with only 51 votes instead of 60 in the Senate. And we had decided at the beginning of last year we were going to use that opportunity to gut Obamacare. And our membership was strongly supportive of saying we can only pick a very limited number of things because of the limited rules of reconciliation. In Obamacare, parts at least of Obamacare being gutted fit that criteria. So that's where we decided to go. And then, of course, throughout the year, the work of Center for Medical Progress came out with those videos, and it exposed to the whole country what was going on. And there was a growing grassroots movement to really go after Planned Parenthood, something I strongly supported. In fact, we passed a bill out of the House to completely defund Planned Parenthood, a bill that went over to the Senate and was not able to get their 60 vote requirement. And it was very unfortunate. And we looked at that and said, what is it that we can do that we can actually get a bill to the president's desk? And that's when we started working with Family Research Council and other groups to say, let's actually go through and figure out. And I worked with my staff and I said, we've got this reconciliation bill that's going to be coming along later. It's only a 51 vote requirement. Can we add Planned Parenthood defunding to that bill? Because that bill can get to the president's desk. And as we researched it, we found out that we can, that it actually fit the criteria, that you could continue to maintain the Obamacare language that guts Obamacare, but you could add defunding of Planned Parenthood to it. And so we did it. And I pushed with the rest of our leadership to make that something that we did as a conference. There were some people that said you still can't get 51 votes in the Senate to defund Planned Parenthood. There were some real concerns expressed. And I was one, again, working with a lot of our friends in the pro-life movement that said this is something we've got to do because we do have one unique opportunity. And it's important to have this fight, to have these votes. And so ultimately we came to an agreement we would do that. We passed that bill out of the House to completely not only gut Obamacare, but to defund Planned Parenthood, sent it over to the Senate. They had the votes. They debated it a long time, but ultimately they were able to get 52 votes for that bill. So you had a record vote, number one, which is very important. So now every member of the House and every member of the Senate is on record specifically on the question of defunding Planned Parenthood. But even more importantly, we then got that bill to Barack Obama's desk. And just a few weeks ago, I'm sure you all know, the president vetoed that legislation. One of the things we're going to be doing next week is having a vote to override that veto. And why this is important, because people say, well, we've seen the vote now. You don't have 290 votes in the House, which is what it would take to override the veto. But one of the things that I contend is that you need to have that vote. You need to have that vote, number one, to show to the country that we actually got that bill to the president's desk. We had the votes to get it. We had legislative abilities to get it there. But it also shows what's at stake in this election. And so we know we've got probably one of the most pro-abortion presidents we've ever had in the White House. But if you really do believe in this movement, if you really do believe in advancing the cause of life, electing a president who shares our values could never be more important. And we just proved that you could actually get a bill to the president's desk that not only guts Obamacare, but that defunds Planned Parenthood. And if you have a president who will sign that bill, that's the only missing ingredient now. And so that bill did go to his desk. He vetoed it. We're going to have the override vote. But the whole country needs to know what's at stake this November. And so we're going to continue having these fights. And again, it's important to have the votes. It's important to move this legislation through. But what's ultimately most important is that we get legislative wins, that we get more wins in the courts. And again, when you talk about what's at stake in this presidential election, the next president will likely have 2 more picks to the Supreme Court. And in case you haven't been watching, the Supreme Court has not been supporting and advancing some of the pro-life, pro-family, religious freedom values that so many of us share. And so having 2 possibly new members of the Supreme Court, which way are we going to go? We're going to go more the route of Antonin Scalia or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Could never be more clear. Imagine if you could put 2 more Antonin Scalias on the Supreme Court. Just how much that would dramatically change our country for the good. That's at stake this November. And so we're going to continue fighting in the House to advance the pro-life movement. But again, it's so important that we work and fight and battle to elect a president that shares our values this November, because that's what's going on. And it's so encouraging to see the March for Life every year. I know in my state of Louisiana, we have busloads of people that usually come up. There are hundreds of thousands of young people that come up to Washington to advocate for life. And why is that important? It's important because while the liberal media wants to make everybody believe that the whole country's going pro-choice, in fact, when you look at how our young people have been expressing their views, so many young people are pro-life. One of the things I contend, I think science and the advancements in technology have actually helped the cause. When I talk to young people, most young people I talk to, the first picture they have of themselves is a picture of them in their mother's womb, an ultrasound. That wasn't the case 20 or 30 years ago, where every single kid coming up today, young people in high school, the first picture they have of themselves is a picture in their mother's womb. They understand what that life really means. They understand that they're not some piece of tissue when they're at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 weeks. And that's the picture that they have themselves, and they keep it with them. And so I think that's so powerful that we continue to have young people coming up and share that message here in Washington to let everybody know that while we're battling on the front lines, that there are hundreds of thousands of young people coming behind us that are going to continue this battle. And we need to continue to have the wins, like Charles Kennedy and Steve Shabbat did with partial birth abortion, and like Henry Hyde did with Hyde Amendment language. And like I said, I am very confident that one day Trent Franks' pain-capable bill that bans all abortions after 20 weeks will one day be the law of this land, and full defunding of Planned Parenthood will one day be the law of this land. We need to elect a president that shares our values, that will sign that into law. So I want to thank Family Research Council for the great work that they do to advance this cause. It's great to fight with them, and it's great to keep this battle going. Thanks for being with you. Yeah, we'll be happy to take some questions if you have. Yeah.
How many people in Congress pro-life voted to fund Planned Parenthood in this last budget bill?
When you look at the budget bill that they had, there is no line item for Planned Parenthood. Obviously, they've been getting taxpayer money for years. It's something that we are trying to eliminate. But again, in order to take that money away, because of the way the laws work, you actually have to have the president sign into law the language to take that away. So we passed a bill, again, going back to last year, before we had the reconciliation bill, we passed a standalone bill to completely defund Planned Parenthood. That bill did not move through the Senate. It passed the House, We have a record vote on it. And obviously you can see where everybody was, both Republican and Democrat. Very few Democrats voted with us. But the overwhelming number of House Republicans voted for that bill to defund Planned Parenthood. But when it went to the Senate, they didn't have enough votes to pass it. And again, we have record votes now. We can actually go see where everybody is in the House and Senate. But they didn't have 60 votes to get that bill to the president's desk. So we said, we know now that 60 votes isn't right now there in the Senate to do this, but we had one shot where you could actually get a bill out of the Senate with only 51 votes. And that was the reconciliation bill. And that bill did get to the president's desk that would defund Planned Parenthood.
Didn't Paul Ryan just say recently that they're going to start doing these budget bills, breaking them up into big sections, 10 or 12 sections, and then won't that be an opportunity? I don't know when those kind of votes are going to be coming up, but won't that be an opportunity where it will determine that the people will actually have to positively vote to fund Planned Parenthood and and Obamacare
Yes.
and things like that? So you'll be able, I don't know when that's coming up, but it sounded like it wasn't too far in the
It's
the
not
future.
far at all. In fact, Speaker Ryan has made this commitment to our whole membership, going back to what's called regular order. And for most people across the country, that doesn't have any real meaning to them. What it means is we're going to open up a legislative process and try to move all of the appropriations bills. Every year, if you had a normal appropriations process, there are 12 different bills that fund all of the government. It's been years since most of those, if not all of them, have been passed out of the House and Senate. When we passed 6 of the 12 last year, the Senate never took up one of them. In fact, Harry Reid filibustered all of them. And again, the Senate, I'd like to see them change their rules at a minimum on appropriations bills so that it would only take 51 votes to get a bill to the president's desk. But that's not the way the Senate works today. We did our part. We passed those bills with strong pro-life riders. Again, not only maintaining the Hyde Amendment language that's been in all of these appropriations bills going back to the 1970s, but adding on to that, completely defunding Planned Parenthood in some of those riders. Not one of those bills got through the Senate. So you ended up at the end of the year with just this one spending bill where you're not able to get all of those individual riders included. So Paul Ryan said, starting probably in March of this year, that we're going to move all 12 of those bills through the House. And each of those bills will have different parts of the government that they deal with. So one will deal with the EPA, one will deal with Health and Human Services, where you have so much of the language not only on Obamacare but on Planned Parenthood, and we have strong riders ready to go to take away their funding. Tom Cole is the chairman of the subcommittee that deals with the areas where Planned Parenthood gets funding, and in the bill we passed out of that committee last year, he completely gutted their funding. Again, that bill never got through the Senate. So we're going to be moving those bills out of the House again this year. We're going to have record votes on all of this in the House. I'd like to see the Senate pass those bills too. But like I said, we were able to at least get one bill to the president's desk specifically dealing with Planned Parenthood. Hopefully we get an opportunity to move more. We'll be moving them out of the House starting in March, probably March through June, moving all 12 of those bills. I'd like to see the Senate take them up and pass them as well. Yes, ma'am.
Penny Starr with CNS News. How many votes do you think you have for the veto, and what's the significance if it's not going to pass of having that veto vote?
Well,
veto override
if you go by what we had last time, we were in the 240s. There are 246 House Republicans right now, so we had more than a majority, but we did not have 2/3. 2/3 would be 290 votes, and and again, having the vote is very important. It'd be nice to win the vote. It'd be nice to have a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate. Again, if you just look at the Senate vote, you only had 52 out of 100 that voted to defund Planned Parenthood. So, getting to 67, you're still far away there, but you had a record vote. Now you can see how every single House member and every single senator voted specifically on the issue of defunding Planned Parenthood. I'm not talking about a bill that combines $4 trillion worth of things, including some items. I'm talking about a single standalone vote on Planned Parenthood. We had that vote, and you can see where every member of Congress stands on that one issue. And again, it underscores to the country that if you had a president that was willing to sign it, you could actually get it into law. Again, not just on his desk. We all know how our system of government works. If a president vetoes a bill, you need a 2/3 vote to override it. Right now, there is not a 2/3 vote in Congress, but we have proven there is a majority in Congress, both House and Senate. And so that's the missing ingredient right now, is getting a president who is pro-life who will sign that bill into law.
Steve, thanks for coming over.
Thanks for
Appreciate it. I know
being with
you got to run.
Appreciate it.
Let's thank Congressman Steve Scalise for coming. Elections have consequences. Let's make sure we're registered and we're voting pro-life. I'm going to turn it back over to Arina. Arina?
Next up is Dustin Siggins. Dustin serves as a DC correspondent for LifeSiteNews. LifeSiteNews is the world's largest pro-life, pro-family daily news website. In addition to that, he has many roles leading their public relations and coalition projects. Before Dustin comes up to the stage, we're going to watch a short clip by LifeSiteNews.
Like many of you probably were, I confess that I was a little disturbed by some of what I saw in those undercover Planned Parenthood videos. Like the time an aborted fetus was born fully intact with a beating heart, and a lab tech was told to stab the baby in the face to harvest its brains. Wait, what? But then I did some research, and it's totally okay, because brain tissue is really important for life-saving research. And as Dr. Julius Hallervorden from Planned Parenthood explained, and I quote, "There was wonderful material among those brains." Wait, Dr. Hallervorden didn't work for Planned Parenthood. He was actually a German doctor who experimented on the brains harvested from the mentally ill people who were executed by, As Planned Parenthood wrote on their Facebook page the other day, fetal tissue is a precious resource that should be exploited for the many health benefits it can provide. Here's another quote. "If you're going to kill all these people, at least take the brains out so that the material could be utilized." Dr. Julius Haller. Look, I'm just glad Planned Parenthood is utilizing all that great fetal brain tissue. It's for science. Of course, I was a little disturbed by the other video with all the body parts of the 20-week-old aborted twin, picking up all those arms and legs and kidneys and whatnot, but Planned Parenthood explained that it was just a natural squeamishness I was experiencing, and I quote, "Because medical procedures and medical research are often difficult to watch." Even one Planned Parenthood doctor admitted that he felt, and again I quote, "slightly nauseated every time a new shipment of brains arrived." Planned Parenthood has responded to this trumped-up controversy by pointing out that everything it does is perfectly legal. And I personally can't think of a single instance off the top of my head in recent memory when something that was seriously evil was also totally legal. Look, at least in America, we have freedom of the press. If an organization as big as Planned Parenthood was doing something illegal or inhumane, the news would pick up on it, investigate in depth, and we would know. Because the free press doesn't turn a blind eye to powerful organizations involved in horrific evil. Seriously, folks, this whole controversy needs to just go away. Planned Parenthood is a modern organization devoted to women's health care. They provide services like mammograms.
You guys provide
like
mammograms?
We do not provide mammograms.
Come on!
Let's welcome Dustin.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. I heard a lot of laughter, and obviously it's a very serious subject, but one of the things we do at LifeSiteNews is we try to use social media, obviously YouTube and the general online platform to promote life, family, and culture. It's always hard to follow David Daleiden, Ryan Bomberger, and Stephen, I just fixed on his name. Anyway, the majority whip, Steve Scalise, and other people. But one thing I would want to explain here is that when it comes to using technology, how many of you here have had an uncle, a brother, a cousin, a friend, an acquaintance say that Planned Parenthood is a women's health organization on Facebook? Raise your hand, or say it on Twitter. A few of you. Do you know how to respond to that? And then what we at LifeSiteNews do is try to provide that information for you to be able to do that, whether it's in a conversation on Facebook, anywhere. For example, in 2014, Planned Parenthood killed approximately 1 in 16 of the girls that were otherwise would have been born in America. That was 6% of the girls who would have been born in 2014. They're a women's health organization. Likewise, and actually last year, anyone know that Planned Parenthood often doesn't report the rapes of minors to state officials in violation of state law? A lot of media won't report that. Last year, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, the state of Alabama busted a Planned Parenthood clinic in Mobile, Alabama for giving 2 abortions to a 14-year-old girl in 4 months. They didn't tell the state. The state caught them. And I spoke to a state official who oversaw this investigation. There were 4 levels of punishment, and of those 4 levels, they gave them the lowest one. The state official explained to me that Planned Parenthood had done an internal investigation. They had not meant to violate state law. They'd done their own internal investigation and concluded that this child was not being abused. Seems reasonable, right? Also in violation of state law. So I spoke to the official. I asked, I clarified what was going on. The person said, "What you said is accurate, but please make sure that you don't frame it that way, because we'll be under attack by the anti-abortion people. Frame it this way to make Planned Parenthood look good." We, of course, reported it accurately. You can find that at LifeSiteNews. A lot of these outlets won't report on this stuff. In Canada, for example, did anyone know about the use of medical waste to save energy costs on incinerators? We were the first international outlet to report, and they actually got linked by Drudge. It was really good for us, bad for babies. But we got linked by Drudge, and it helped shut down a program in Oregon where a Canadian abortion clinic was sending medical waste, including baby parts, to an incinerator in Oregon. That program was shut down after we and other outlets, especially in Canada, reported it. But again, you're not going to read that in a lot of other outlets. In Europe, rich women in Britain often use 12-week-old fetuses that are killed, that are aborted, for their beauty products. Women in Britain go to the Netherlands. Women in Russia go to Ukraine. Again, we report this stuff. So when they talk, and I should clarify, that the latter 3 examples are not from Planned Parenthood. That's representative of the abortion industry writ large worldwide. So I need to clarify that. But again, it's representative of the industry that Planned Parenthood is part of. So when people try to go on social media and use the technology in ways that don't help truth, that don't help life, Ryan Bomberger provided tremendous examples. David Daleiden now has obviously led in both strategy and truth, but also in use of the media. What we at LifeSiteNews try to do is hold the media accountable. We call them out when they're wrong. We try to praise them when they're right. We use them sometimes. Sometimes they even use us, even if they don't always quote us. And so when you're on Facebook, when your uncle talks about Planned Parenthood, their 3% argument. Now, Ryan showed several ways that their argument is inaccurate. Another way is that Title X funding, which the Congressional Budget Office said was worth $60 million, most of which goes to Planned Parenthood. A lot of the 20 contraceptives that are approved by the FDA, at least 4 are abortifacients, which means they're abortion drugs and or devices, which means that your money is going to fund Planned Parenthood's elective abortions through, quote, contraceptives, which interfere with the creation of new human life, that are also double as abortifacients, which end a human life. And again, a lot of outlets won't report this. A lot of outlets try to claim that Planned Parenthood has no federal funding at all, which is countered by what Cecile Richards actually told Congress. And again, we reported this about the Hyde Amendment, which a lot of mainstream outlets like to say bans federal funding of abortions. It bans it in cases except for rape, incest, and life of the mother, which I think Guttmacher reported is about 1.5% of all abortions. That's still federal funding of abortions, even in addition to the Title X funding. Again, at LifeSiteNews, we try to use technology. We have 600,000 people on Facebook. We have that video, get 70,000 people watching it, plus all the people here today. So hopefully we'll get over the 72,000. And we try to use technology, but we also try to make sure that we provide you the truth and the weapons and the strategies necessary to make sure that as the fight for life goes on, as the fight for family, as the fight for culture continues, that we are able to accurately inform those around us. Because the media is important, but what really works is having people standing, talking to your neighbor. You can read LifeSiteNews, they go, they're just a right-wing rag. Until you point out the stats, until you make it personalized, and they go, huh, that right-wing stuff is actually true on abortion. They are an unborn child? The science shows that? Well, yes, it does. It shows they're growing. It shows, it's not a religious argument. It's religious and human nature and evidence of, the mother's belly. I've never been pregnant, but the mother's belly getting bigger usually shows growth. And so what we try to do is provide through technology, through accurate reporting, through precision of language. We don't use the term pro-choice at LifeSiteNews. It's pro-abortion. It's abortion supporter, abortion backer. We cannot let, we don't say anti-abortion. We are pro-life. So there's a lot of precision in language that we use that is also very effective in social media. So that's kind of a summary of what we do and how we try to use technology, truth, and tactics to make sure that the life issue is promoted accurately. One of our coworkers, my U.S. bureau chief, did a prayer last night with Ryan Bomberger, actually. He did a prayer that the mainstream media would accurately report what goes on with life. Today, March for Life, we joined a group the other day with the Media Research Center and many other organizations pushing the media to accurately cover the March for Life. Because of the snow, there's no idea, people don't know exactly how many people will be there today. A lot of people have gone home early, a lot of people skipped coming. But if the mainstream media says thousands show, that's technically accurate but still misleading. Just like Bill Clinton's statement about, I did not have sexual relations with that woman today. So it's really important that we get out there and tell our friends and family what's going on. And again, at LifeSiteNews, we like to make sure that we provide you with the technology, the truth, and the tactics necessary in order to really push life on the local, state, regional, national, international level. And of course, we'll always tell you to pray as well. So thank you for your time, and good luck out there. Stay warm.
Thank you, Dustin and LifeSiteNews, for informing others on very important pro-life issues and pro-family issues. Our next speaker is Lauren Merz. Lauren is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Live Action, a media nonprofit dedicated to ending abortion and building a culture of life. Live Action runs stealth education campaigns targeted at changing hearts and minds about abortion and oversees the largest pro-life social media platform on the web, including over 1 million Facebook fans and over 59,000 Twitter followers. It is my pleasure to welcome Lauren.
Thank you all for coming. We're actually going to start out with a video that we produced in 2014 featuring our infanticide investigation that was released in 2013. It's kind of a summary of that investigation and some of the things that were exposed, and as well as it intertwines a story about a little boy who survived an abortion at the same time that shows abortionists killing a child at the same age. So we can show that first.
Well, in my heart and my mind, life begins when the mother thinks it begins, not when anybody else thinks it begins. For some women, it's before they conceive. For some women, it's never. Even after they deliver, it's still a problem, not a baby.
At this point, does it have all of its organs and all of that stuff? Is it already fully
It's not
developed?
fully developed.
Okay.
It doesn't even it doesn't even look like a baby yet.
It doesn't?
Technically, it has its organs, it has parts, like we all have parts, but it's not done.
So, does it have a face or all of that stuff? Or?
Yeah, kind of,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's what's developing into.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want you to torture yourself.
Really? You cannot do a termination once it's outside of the body. Okay, he has to resuscitate it and he has to send it to the hospital. That's the law.
Okay.
But that's why a termination is done inside. He does a termination inside and then he removes the pregnancy.
So normally he just kills it inside, so that wouldn't be.
Well,
okay.
we don't use the word kill, but
Yeah, okay, or terminate.
termination.
Oh, you guys say terminate.
Mhm.
Okay, just to make it
No, just because that's what's happening.
We induce a demise, an intrauterine demise.
What does demise mean?
Death. We use a
Suction.
combination of suction and then real instruments to literally go in and grab and pull pieces out.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe that's a little more graphic than I usually describe it.
So I'll have a dead baby in me?
For 3 days, yeah.
Will it start to decay or something? Oh.
So it's like putting meat in a crock pot. Okay, it doesn't get broke, but it gets softer. It doesn't get infected or.
Okay.
You know.
So the dead baby in me is like meat in a crock pot.
Pretty much, yeah, kind of much.
All right. All right.
A slow cooker.
To insert the injection, it's going straight into the sac and to the pregnancy. Okay, it's bottom down. It'll insert through the baby's bottom. Okay.
Okay,
if
so
it's head down, it'll be inserted through the head, through the cranium.
And then it's just, I mean, like any shot, you know, like a flu shot or a vaccine, really.
Just like a flu shot or vaccine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I, where when we get a flu shot, we're kind of, ooh, not that experience of anxiety and suffering is not, it's not capable of.
Okay.
And so that, I think, helps us all to feel more comfortable with this.
Thank you. So that video that you just saw is Live Action's most pro-life, or the most pro-life viral video, and it's been viral for about 1.5 years now. And that video has been seen in 2015, it was seen 30 million times on Facebook alone. And we have many comments that we've documented of people's hearts and minds being changed by seeing that video. One of the strategies that you can see there is that we have to both expose what's going on in the abortion industry and then explain the humanity of the child. People need to encounter the horror of abortion, and unfortunately they need to see what's happening, and then they also need to encounter the humanity of the child, because that's what we're really fighting for here. So at Live Action, we do the undercover investigation videos. We've been doing them since 2008, we were incorporated, and we have documented multiple abuses by the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood. And we have to create that content and expose what's going on, and then we have to disseminate it throughout all the media as much as possible. One of the great things about the pro-life movement is that we can bypass the traditional media and use social media and then our independent news arms to get out the word about the abortion industry. Through Live Action, we also create the moments necessary to change the abortion debate. So when people encounter the humanity of the child and the horror of abortion, hearts and minds are changed. So we have to reach the mushy middle and explain to them what is happening. Through Live Action, we also reach a record 60 million people on Facebook in 2015. So Facebook is a great tool for all of us to use to expose the abortion industry. So you can follow Live Action on Facebook and Twitter and on liveaction.org to access our content. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren and Live Action, in seeking to reveal the truth about Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry. We appreciate all of Live Action's work. We have been blessed with not one, but 2 movies about Gosnell. And so the next clip you will see is about a documentary about Gosnell. The other one was a film, so it was a drama. And this is a documentary. And it is called 3801 Lancaster. Matt Fridge works with Vinegar Hill Creative as a writer, director, and editor. Recently, he spearheaded social media efforts for the release of 3801 Lancaster, American Tragedy, a feature-length documentary following the case of late-term abortionist Kermit Gosnell. Matt is unable to join us in person due to bad weather. However, he will be with us via Skype. Let's first watch a short clip of the film 3801 Lancaster.
Dr. Gosnell, early on, he evinced this interest in abortion and abortion technique. And very soon after Roe versus Wade, when abortion became legal, he ran into trouble.
May 14th, 1972. Gosnell offers to perform second trimester abortions on 15 poor women who have been bused to his clinic from Chicago. Unbeknownst to the women, Gosnell and his associate, Harvey Carman, planned to use an experimental device called a supercoil. The experiment, later called the Mother's Day Massacre, was a disaster. 9 of the 15 women experienced serious complications, including a punctured uterus, hemorrhage, infections, and retained fetal remains. Despite an investigation by the CDC and Philadelphia Department of Public Health, the Pennsylvania Board of Medicine ignores Gosnell's role in the massacre. His license remains in good standing. Grand jury report, pages 97 and 98.
There's more oversight for women's hair salons than for abortion clinics in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Hi there. My name is Matthew Fridge. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm the social media director for the film 3801 Lancaster, American Tragedy. You can follow our film on Twitter or Facebook at 3801 Lancaster. Or you can follow me on Twitter at Matthew Fridge. There's no E on the end there, it's just F-R-I-D-G. I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you guys today, but I want to thank the Family Research Council for inviting me on behalf of the film and our team, Director David L. Trogi, Michael Hartnett, and producer Jen Brown. 3801 Lancaster is a feature film. It's a feature-length documentary that exposes the horrors of Dr. Kermit Gosnell and his late-term abortion practices at his clinic at 38th and Lancaster in West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, what makes this case and this film stand out is that the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Department of State turned a blind eye, allowing Gosnell to perform illegal late-term abortions and delivering many babies alive and then killing them by snipping the spinal cord on the back of the neck with scissors. He was responsible for the death and mistreatment of many of his patients, even some of his adult women patients. We believe that this case has the potential to impact both pro-life and pro-choice audiences. We felt this film could advance the dialogue on the subject of abortion. And our goal, and David's goal in directing the film, was to tell the story in a journalistic manner and to really let the facts speak for themselves. As a result, we've seen an incredible response to the film. People hosting screenings, great attendance at these screenings, churches. We've had over 50 theaters screen the film. And our producer, Jen Brown, even has stories of women coming up to her at these screenings and sharing their personal stories, their personal hurts, and thanking the filmmakers for bringing this to the light. But we believe firmly that the film has the ability to take this dialogue far and wide. Just recently, we were invited to contribute to an amicus brief to the Supreme Court regarding HB2 and abortion clinic safety regulations. And we believe our film illustrates the importance of these regulations, and we're excited to have the opportunity to participate in that important work. But without help, filmmakers like ourselves are really limited in our ability to spread the message. We are self-distributed. We don't have a major studio backing us with millions of dollars to take this film to audiences worldwide. If you would just allow me for a moment to quote the Apostle Paul when he says in Romans 10:14, "How can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them?" And maybe you'd allow me to apply the same logic to the message of the pro-life movement and our film. You know, as filmmakers, we want people to hear. We want them to know the message, but we need more voices to do the telling. You know, we've already seen that pro-choice individuals are appalled by the Gosnell-type atrocities. You know, as depicted in the last section of our film, we have two pro-choice Planned Parenthood nurses who speak out against the deplorable medical practices that they witnessed in their Delaware clinic. But what we really want to do is be able to move far beyond the pro-life audience and the pro-life community. We believe that one way to move the message of films in general with this message is to propel them from the sidelines into the public square. Our public square as filmmakers is the new digital media outlets that enter millions of homes through the power of the internet. You have Netflix and Amazon, iTunes, all these platforms that we can put our films on. And we need help. We need people to watch and view. So our goal with 3801 Lancaster and getting this message of Kermit Gosnell and really what abortion can look like is to see our film reach the top 10 films of iTunes within the first weeks of its release this spring. This will help get the message in front of a massive audience, and by pushing it higher and higher into the ratings of iTunes, it will push the film and the message farther and farther out. In doing that, we make this subject front and center. And to get this to happen, we need thousands of people to view and rate the film on the iTunes platform. So the question is, how do we mobilize thousands of people on the internet? Well, I think we're in the right place, wouldn't you say, with the group of people that we have here today? You know, as content creators and filmmakers, we can go out and capture these stories that have impact. And as bloggers and social media strategists and digital activists, you are key in getting this content in front of a large audience. So for our film, and we believe for a film of this nature from any filmmaker, we see three ways that people in the social media world and blog world could help do that. And the first one is really to build anticipation, to write articles, do podcasts, write reviews, to do anything that we can with the platforms that we have to get the word out and really plant a seed and before the film's release. The second thing would be to promote the release of the film. You know, we want to get the date of our release to you as soon as we nail that down, as we're in talks with some online platforms right now. Encourage your subscribers to view and rate the film with a sense of urgency. So when that film comes out, we want to immediately flood social media with coverage of it so that very quickly it can be boosted and people would rate the film as well. And the third thing, which you can do right now, would be to connect with us. We want to connect with you. We want to talk with you. We want your feedback and insight on how we can better get this film out and communicate the message with people that you're connected with. And we believe the best way to do this is, well, why don't you just go ahead and get your phone out? Just grab your phone or your tablet, or maybe you're on your laptop right now. If you're watching on the internet, I'm not offended. You can totally open up another tab and just navigate in your web browser to 3801lancaster.com/digital activism. That's 3801lancaster.com/digital activism, all one word. When you get to that page, you're going to see a Join Now button. If you click that Join Now button and put your information in, we're going to send you an email right away that has a press kit that you can download, information on how to get a screener of the film so you can write a review, and just contact us, and we'll be giving you information as we get closer to our release date to be able to help you communicate this message and the release of this film to your platforms. You know, we're so glad to be able to do something that we love, which is make films, but also move the message of the pro-life community forward, and hoping to see these atrocities no longer supported by government funding, and really to see people stand up, even beyond the pro-life community, and say that's enough. So thank you very much for having us. Hopefully you'll visit that website and connect with us, and be safe, and God bless.
Thank you, Matt, so much. I have also screened this movie, this documentary, and it is really, really powerful. Matt and his team have done interviews not only with Kermit Gosnell over the phone from his jail cell, but also with victims of Gosnell, nurses, the police, the detectives who are involved in the case, and this is all in the documentary itself. So I encourage you to see it and to promote it, because Kermit Gosnell was not the only one. There are other Gosnells out there, and we need to hold them accountable. And this is why, actually, and I want you to take note of this, March 2nd, the Supreme Court is going to take up oral arguments for the Texas HB2 case. That's the women's health case. And this case in particular deals with regulations of abortion facilities. And it is very important that if you are here in D.C., that you come out to the Supreme Court March 2nd at 10 a.m. Without further ado, we have Chase now. Okay. So without further ado, we're going to take you back to the National Mall with Chase.
Thank you, Arina. Thank you, Arina. We're out here live on the National Mall. For those of you who are just coming with us, we were here earlier just hanging out with people. That the area is getting energetic. People are getting excited. The pro-life generation is here in full force. For those of you who are on your way, remember that the march is going to be further down towards the Washington Monument. It's not in its usual place due to construction. But let me go to just ask some students. So this whole group is from South Dakota. They came 26 hours to be here. So I'm going to talk with Ann. Ann, why are you pro-life?
I am pro-life because each and every life is sacred and made in the image and likeness of God. And life isn't our choice, it's God's. So
Absolutely, I completely agree. What's your name right here? Ollie, why are you pro-life?
I think that I'm pro-life because everyone deserves a chance, and a really moving fact that we heard yesterday was that half of our generation has been aborted, and it's a really sad fact, and if that doesn't move you, I don't know what will.
Absolutely. Well, people are starting to flood the mall here, and we've got a message for Planned Parenthood from this group right here. Here we go.
We are the pro-life generation. We are the pro-life generation. We are the pro-life generation.
Back to you, Arina. All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chase. We'll be out there soon. Up next, we have Brendan Buell from the Jackson Strong Facebook community. After doctors viewed his wife, Brittany's 17-week ultrasound of their unborn son, Jackson, there was concern for Jackson's life when an abnormality in his brain was revealed. After weeks of follow-up appointments and Jackson being misdiagnosed 3 times, at 23 weeks, Brandon and Brittany were encouraged to have an abortion. Numerous doctors informed the couple that there was little chance that Jackson would survive and that he would probably never see, hear, talk, or walk. On August 27, 2014, Brittany gave birth to their son, Jackson Emmett Buell. Today, Jackson has defied the odds and is 16 months and thriving. On behalf of Jackson and Brittany, Brandon is here to tell Jackson's story. First, let's watch a short clip of Jackson before Brandon comes to the stage.
You want to say hi to anybody in particular? Okay. Yes.
Say hi.
Yeah, hi world. Yeah, my name's Jackson. Yeah.
Say bye-bye, Dada.
Hi, buddy. You walking into your room?
Yeah.
You walking?
Yeah.
Yeah. You walking into your room?
There you go.
Yeah. Good job.
Good job, bud.
Going to your room. You're going to your room. Yeah.
Good morning. Very happy to be here and very proud to be here on behalf of my son and also for my wife, Brittany. Unfortunately, they could not make the trip. Probably a good idea with the blizzard coming in. Currently, they're on the couch at home watching our webcast and probably in 70-degree weather, very comfortable as well. I wish we could say that here. But for them and for me to be here, it's an honor, it's a privilege, because Jackson wasn't expected to be here at all. And his pictures, they always make me smile. They make me tear up a little bit, sorry to start that way. But his story is special. And I'm here to tell that story for him for a lot of reasons. But we're talking a lot about the pro-life movement getting younger. It doesn't get much younger than a 16-month baby at all. I'm sure I'm part of that group too, being 30 years old, but he is certainly living proof that anything can happen and there's purpose and hope for any life. And Jackson was not expected to make it this far at all. In fact, next week he turned 17 months old. His life, his surviving, his thriving, it's all been really nothing short of remarkable and, dare I say, miraculous. Before I get too much further, let me thank Arina for the introduction, for Family Research Counselor for inviting his story to be part of such an amazing event. When Jackson was born in Orlando in August of 2014, we spent almost a full month there trying to figure out, what do we have before us? What are the odds stacked against our son? And we could have made a different choice right away. At 17 weeks, we went in for the second ultrasound, and we found out that Jackson was going to be a boy, which we wanted, so we were ecstatic. And the very next day, we got a phone call that there was an issue. We could have made a different choice, but we asked two very important questions. We said, well, first of all, is Jackson in pain? Is he suffering? Well, no. Okay. Well, then Brittany, she's got to be in jeopardy. Is she, in jeopardy of losing her life? Well, no. Well, then what are we talking about? If our son is not going to make it, that's fine. But we're not going to make that choice. The day that we take God out of the equation and we make that choice for him, we can't let God's plan happen, can we? On day 2, when Jackson was with us, we were in the hospital room. A doctor was there trying to detail exactly his MRI results and then compare that to that of a quote-unquote normal child. And when you look at Jackson, he is different. But when you see that on day 2 and you're raw with emotion, you're believing everything the doctors are telling you that you're going to lose your son someday soon, then it's a bit startling. He went on to tell us what Arina already alluded to, that he would probably never hear, he'd probably never see, he'd probably never walk, he'd probably never talk. Shortly after that, in the room, something fell. It was a loud crash. I'm actually holding Jackson to my chest, and he jumps in my arms. And that was the very first instance that we realized, okay, hang on, there's something going on here. He might do a little bit more than what you're expecting him to do. And so the doctor, we saw it, we all looked at him, there was an awkward moment of silence, and we said, okay, what's he going to say to that? He said nothing. He actually got up and he walked out of the room completely. And we never saw him again. After a month, they told us, go ahead, take Jackson home. There's really nothing more we can do for him. Give him comfort. We'll set you up with hospice, and we'll just take it from there. They truly did not expect Jackson to make it at all. And he'll be 17 months next week. And the fact that I'm here today shows you how far his story has already traveled. The fact that I'm here in Washington for a blizzard, great timing for my first ever public speech, I think. But it's so cool to be here, not for me at all. It's actually for Jackson, for his story, to be a part of such an amazing event, to be a part of such a monumental day in history in our world and our family, because we believe as well that this movement is only getting stronger, and we're happy to be a part of that. As his parents, if you can't tell, I'm a little biased of my son and what he goes through. It's encouraging to watch him grow, watch him be comfortable. And with his condition, it's actually called microhydranencephaly. It's part of the microcephaly group. It's very rare to have it. It's very rare to thrive with it, let alone survive at all. With his condition, the cerebellum did not form properly, and we caught that early on in the ultrasounds, which is why they had that conversation with us, if you want to make a choice. And the cerebellum is directly involved with controlling voluntary muscle movements such as posture, balance, and coordination of speech. Logically, it makes no sense for him to do the things that he's doing. In fact, Mark Patterson, the professor of neurology, pediatrics, and medical genetics at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, said about Jackson, children with these sorts of problems can help us rethink the role of the brainstem and the cortex in consciousness. When Jackson was 1, we actually went to Boston to the #1 infant neurological team in the entire country at Boston Children's Hospital. We were hoping for more options for help for him, and what we found out is that they never have seen that story quite like that before. They see all kinds of rare cases, but to see that, they were fascinated. They were fascinated to look at Jackson's MRI results and see that how is this boy even here in the same room with us right now? It doesn't make sense. But they're fascinated. The team we have back in Orlando, we have a fantastic medical team back home in Central Florida where my wife and Jackson are right now. And they are simply saying, you know, we don't know what to say about Jackson. We don't know how long you're going to have him, but we didn't expect this. We didn't expect this at all. And they simply say Jackson now is writing his own story and we're along for the ride. And to think we could have missed all that if we had made a different choice, gone with a different decision. But we were, again, not going to make that choice. We were not going to play God. Shortly after Jackson was born, a colleague of mine actually started the Facebook page, Jackson Strong, and the Jackson Strong community page. It started off really small at first. We didn't think it would do much. We just wanted to share Jackson's story. He had a few fans, mostly family, friends, a few groupies, but not much yet. And we just watched it steadily grow as people loved the pictures. They loved the videos about him. They wanted to share it more, and it steadily grew, steadily grew. By the time we went to Boston in August of last year, 2015, it went from 12,000 likes, which we thought, wow, that's great. And then the Boston Globe contacted us, said, we found out you're in town, we know about Jackson's story, would you like to share it? Of course, we'll share a story. They published it. The Daily Mail in the United Kingdom then said, hey, I saw your story from the Boston Globe, can we interview you? Sure, we'll share it again. And seemingly overnight, and literally it was one weekend, we started seeing Jackson go completely viral. A month and a half later, that 12,000 fan base grew to over 200,000 people around the world. And today, as I stand here, we are approaching 350,000 likes around the world. Jackson's story is known in all 50 states, dozens of countries, and literally on all 7 continents. We also covered Antarctica recently. That was pretty cool. But if that doesn't prove what the power of social media, which is what we're talking about here today as well, the impact it can have when you have a positive headline out there too, and how much that can move and how much that can shake the world, I don't know what does. I really don't. And with social media, of course, you are kind of in the spotlight just a little bit, and you receive a lot of messages. We've received thousands of messages from people around the world, mostly from families that thank us for going public with Jackson's story, but also just to have the courage to go forward. They have a lot of amazing stories themselves, children with special needs, children battling life-threatening illnesses, some worse than Jackson's. They thank us for being a family that is willing to be a part of a movement that needs to happen. There's the other side, too, that we hear from, the doubters, the critics. Truly, I can say the word haters because some of the comments they send in I could never repeat. But one night, I guess in a fit of passion, being a father, I decided to write a long post that I won't bore you with now, but in part I wrote, we would never choose to play God in that situation. When we had been given a child, and it was our job to give him a chance to live. Truthfully, I will never understand how choosing to carry Jackson and give him a chance to survive could ever be considered selfish. How is killing him immediately the better alternative, when no doctor could give us a reason to do so? When did choosing life become the selfish choice of this never-ending debate that we somehow have found ourselves in, simply for giving our baby a chance to live and not have to wonder, what if? The actual word that should be used in our situation is sacrifice. And when I say sacrifice, I mean that in a certain way. I mean, every parent out there would do anything for their child, anything. To be able to see them grow and to flourish, to be healthy and happy, you do anything. You go to any length for them. A lot of the messages we receive from families go into that, saying how they can share their own story with us. We've also heard from men and women of our brave military that somehow, with everything they're up against in today's world, find a strength of inspiration and source from a 16-month-old child. And one of the most important messages that we have ever received, and we will never forget it, came from a doctor who works at a women's clinic. She said that normally when they see a situation like Jackson's, they tell the mother their suggestion is to abort, is to terminate. They're instructed to do so. But because of Jackson and his story, they won't do that again. All these stories of the other families, they're unique, they're special, they deserve to have a spotlight as well besides just Jackson's. And it's amazing to watch what has happened on his Facebook page, on Jackson Strong, to see that it's now become a community not just about Jackson, but about a source of inspiration and support for all of these people to come together for unconditional love and to go off of one another and say, what's going on with your life? What's going on with your child? Let's share that together in this whole movement. Just because a child may be born differently, or he may look different, or maybe their life will not be as long as maybe it should be if we're going to talk about it being fair or not. That's not the question, that's not the issue. Because no perfect family situation is out there. And it may not be the best timing, but it doesn't mean that a life is not worth saving and a child is not worth keeping. I can assure you there are plenty of people out there, parents, that cannot conceive that will gladly raise that child. Gladly. On January 15th, 1929, one of the most important, influential, and impactful people that our nation has ever seen was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, and actually this week, we celebrate his life for the bold stance that he took on believing in equality at a time when having rights and a voice of change, as a man of color, was far from popular or widely accepted. This man had a dream, and he was despised, he was hated, and eventually was even killed because of it. Dr. Martin Luther King won a Nobel Peace Prize and later was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom after his death for his work and efforts in helping to speak peace and bring our country together. On August 28, 1963, King delivered his I Have a Dream speech right here in Washington at the Lincoln Memorial. Today, just after this conference, we have the privilege, again, of being part of the March for Life, in the same setting where so many other important rallies and marches have happened in history before it. And there is no reason why today's events cannot be just as important and just as impactful for many years to come. Anyone in this world can make a difference. They just have to have the opportunity to be here, to be living proof that anything can happen, and that every situation has hope, and every situation has a purpose. And if you want, just look at our son Jackson, and maybe one day he'll tell you that himself. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless.
Thank you, Brandon and Brittany and Jackson, for being such a beautiful witness to all of us. I think there wasn't a dry face in this room when you were telling this story. And it just shows the beauty that you are really living the pro-life message in your very life. And it is such a witness to us. It's beautiful. And on top of that, you guys are amazing at social media. I mean, we don't even come close to that. So we just encourage you to continue going in that way because it is a beautiful story. The next speaker, who cannot be with us today, but will be sharing a video, is Governor Sam Brownback. In 1994, he was elected to Congress to represent Kansas' 2nd District. 2 years later, he won a seat in the U.S. Senate, where he served for 15 years. In 2010, he was elected the 46th governor of Kansas. Governor Brownback has a 100% pro-life voting record when he served as the U.S. Senator from Kansas. He authored a bill banning human cloning and has supported the ethical use of adult stem cell research. As governor, he has signed numerous pro-life bills into law, including the Unborn Child Protection from Dismemberment Act. Right now, we're just going to go to Governor Brownback's video.
I'm Sam Brownback, Governor of the State of Kansas. I want to apologize that I'm not there in person. Weather is just really creating some difficulty, and I've got to get a flight back to the state of Kansas. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your spreading the word and the information to change the culture, to stand for life, to fight for life. I'm being honored here at the Right to Life rally and some of the associated activities because of what the state of Kansas has done on a dismemberment ban bill that bans abortions that are dismemberment procedures. It's the first state in the country that did this, and I wish I were there to talk with you about it. Abortion is a horrific procedure, and dismembering has been a procedure that had been allowed in the state of Kansas and is not now. And you just think of it, even that we allow this, or we're talking about, the idea that you would dismember a child is horrific to even think about. But that procedure has been banned now in the state of Kansas, and I hope that a number of states take this cause up, and I hope the federal government takes this cause up as well. It is my hope in looking forward that you continue to work to change the culture and to change the society, and to really carry the banner strong of life, recognizing that the important thing that you're doing is to change the culture and disseminate information. Truth is beautiful. Lies are ugly. The truth of life is beautiful. Life is being a precious, sacred, unique, never to be created, recreated, child of a living God. Life is just beautiful. Abortion is the killing of that life. Abortion's ugly. Unfortunately, too many people in mainstream media won't cover the difference between the truth and the lie. I remember being in the United States Senate hosting a hearing, and I had both Roe and Doe, the two women that were the subject of those lawsuits that went in front of the United States Supreme Court, Roe of Roe v. Wade, Doe of Doe v. Bolton, testifying that the factual basis of their cases were lies, that they disavowed what had taken place. So you got these two pillar cases, the two primary plaintiffs in it testifying against abortion, and we had no mainstream media there. Nobody was at it. First time the two of them were together and testifying. But that's the nature of what you're dealing with, a mainstream media that doesn't want to admit that these things are taking place. Take Planned Parenthood and the videos that were out in detail of what's taking place in these clinics and how much was it covered in the mainstream media. So who's left to tell the truth? And it's you. You're the ones who are left to tell the truth. And that is so key in a society and in changing a culture, is to tell the truth and to get it out. And that's usually the struggle, is to get it out. Is to get out the truth. You can look back at prior social movements and see that the real problem was getting out the truth. It wasn't so much that people were for what was taking place, whether you're talking about the slave trade or slavery, people weren't for it, but they just kind of wanted to ignore it, or they didn't want to admit what was going on, or they just didn't want it to be in their lives. And it was dedicated people getting out and telling the truth consistently and never stopping, fighting against the slave trade, fighting against slavery, that eventually brings about these changes. But they kept fighting. They kept telling the truth. They kept describing what horrific things were taking place. And you've got to do the same thing. To stand for life and to fight for it, and to fight consistently for it, and to keep pushing. To convince a culture to change. Because ultimately that's what this is about, is convincing a culture to change. We're winning this fight. Country is pro-life. The laws aren't. Country is. We've got to continue to push this fight and continue to spread the truth. And that's what you're about. Please keep doing it. We're going to keep pushing for these things in the state of Kansas. A lot of pro-lifers are going to keep pushing for the truth of life. We're winning the cultural battle. We have to change the culture to change the laws. And this is what will be the fight and will be ultimately about. Keep spreading that truth. Thank you very much for what you do. God bless you all.
Governor Brownback, we truly appreciate all the hard work you do for life, so thank you. Before we head out to the march itself, wanted to look ahead, what to expect in 2016 and what to hope for in 2016. First of all, we have to work really, really hard to elect a pro-life president. That you have to get active and be involved and make sure that you tell people that they should vote, that they need to vote. Every single vote counts, because if we get a pro-life president, we will get a lot of pro-life bills passed into law. Especially, we've seen Obama veto the defunding Planned Parenthood. It would also affect what kind of judges we will have. So this is super important. In terms of bills, we're looking to pass the no taxpayer funding for abortion, born alive infant survivors of abortion, Abortion Non-Discrimination Act. That means nurses and hospitals that don't want to do abortions should not be forced to do so. The Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, that by 20 weeks post-fertilization, a child feels pain. We are one of 7 countries in the world that does not protect babies past 20 weeks. One of 7. We joined North Korea, Vietnam. We're going to continue investigating and defunding Planned Parenthood. We want to do this at the state level as well as at the national level, because we want to hold them accountable for all the things that the videos the Center for Medical Progress has captured, as well as live action and all of the investigations. And lastly, as I said before, please be sure to be out March 2nd at 10 a.m. for the oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court. It's so important that you are there, standing up for life. This is one of the most major cases that we've seen since Roe v. Wade, and we need you out there. So without further ado, I'd like to tell you that we're so grateful that you joined us this morning, both the audience members here and also in the online community. As part of the thriving digital pro-life community, we will continue to fight for life by engaging and educating others with every online tool at our disposal. We hope to see you again next year at ProLifeCon Digital Action Summit. Now let's go out there and march.